Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. I nearly said plank of the week there, but it's a bit early. We were talking about it, that's why. It's a word association. I don't know what's going on with my tie. It looks a bit weird, doesn't it? I'll try and straighten that out for you. Welcome. It's 7 o'clock. Right, bang on the button. And of course it is, Tuesday the 31st of March, which means one thing only. Tomorrow will be April Fool's Day. I can't imagine what kind of ridiculousness we'll have to come up with in order to try and trick you into thinking we're doing some fake stories. I've given up on all of that now because the real stories are so ridiculous that you actually can't make any mad April Fool's stories up anyway. So I'm delighted to say, here with us this morning, as he is every Tuesday, Mr. Russell Quirk.
Good morning.
Very nice to see you.
And you, mate.
The world continues to turn. I said yesterday that it feels a bit like at the moment you're in a sort of giant tumble dryer, just kind of going round and round and round. Yeah. Occasionally it stops and you go, oh, it stopped.
Yeah.
Then it goes back the other way.
But not for long.
I bought some petrol this morning.
Wow.
151.9.
Did you ring your bank first?
Yeah. Had to take out a mortgage. And I take the view, because I noticed at the weekend people are starting to queue up for it, right? And I won't queue for anything. Because I happen to come in here at 5.
Well, you'd rather leave your car at the side of the road.
Well, no, because I come in here at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I happen to stop. I stop at a petrol station every morning to buy the papers, these, because it's the only place I can get them. I thought, and there's never anybody there. Yeah. So I thought, well, I might as well just put some petrol in the car.
Yeah.
I did need it.
Did you see what the government are making out of this energy price hike?
£20 million a day extra, according to the Times this morning.
Yeah,
in energy tax.
And that's without Rachel Reeves then adding the 5% extra fuel duty,
which is coming
she's about
in
to do
September,
in a few days.
right? Yeah.
So 20 million quid extra a day pays for a lot of migrants.
Does pay for a lot of migrants. It doesn't pay for enough of them, though. But there's still more
According
of them
to the
coming.
government, no.
You know, compared to the most recent forecast, the Treasury will bring in an extra £8 billion a year from VAT alone on petrol and taxes. And this is why it was so ridiculous yesterday when you saw Starmer inviting all the heads of the energy companies in to say, you know, we must do this together. We can't do it alone. Well, you could actually reduce the tax, matey, couldn't you?
Yeah, well, every other country has.
Australia's done it.
Australia's done it. Lots of European countries have. They've either taken VAT off of fuel, or they've halved it, or they've suspended fuel duty. Right. But of course, look, Reeves can't afford to do it because she's got us in such an economic mess.
Yes.
She needs the money to spend on wasteful vanity projects.
Yeah. Well, not least what we described yesterday as the, you know, the payment to various people, the pay rise that you're going to get if you're on benefits, 6.2%.
Or an MP.
Double what you get on inflation. And then MP's 5%, another 3,300 quid for them, which is also payable, by the way, to the Cabinet, including Rachel Reeves. So they've caused the cost of living to rocket before Iran even happened, and they get rewarded.
And it shows how completely out of touch they are, because of course they don't actually ever have to put their hands in their pocket for things like, you know, food, drink, fuel, because everything's expensed.
Yeah, exactly right. And also when they're in government, everything's literally run by the people in government. They even get a free house.
Yeah, so they're completely and utterly distanced from the rest of us, which is why they keep making stupid decisions.
I know, it is absolutely shocking. I'm trying to find out, where are we here? Tuesday, 31st of March. Yeah, there you go. I've just launched it. Yeah, I was a bit tardy this morning because we're running around doing a whole bunch of stuff. A quick look at some of the headlines going on, though. Let's see, what have we got? A lot of stuff about Scott Mills, of course. The Sun and the Mail both leading with it. Mills fired over 2016 sex probe. Cops quiz on offences against a teenager. The case was closed due to lack of evidence. BBC Crisis, as another scandal hit presenter, is sacked. Radio 2 breakfast star Scott Mills fired over historic relationship. There's a lot going on here.
But there's a difference here, though, isn't there? I mean, look, this is 10 years ago. Obviously, lots of these historic BBC scandals, of which there have been quite a number. Obviously, they all kind of tend to go back in time. But the difference with this one, of course, is that there was a probe into, sorry, that's probably the wrong phraseology, a probe. There was an investigation into what Scott Mills is alleged to have done.
Yes.
And of course,
by the police.
Yeah, but it was dropped, right? So there was found to be no evidence. So it's
not quite as simple as that.
Well, I was going to say
there's found to be not enough evidence to bring a case.
So, but what's a bit odd here is normally they allow kind of bad behaviour, particularly of a sexual nature. So Hugh Edwards, Jimmy Savile, to carry on for decades before they do anything. This guy hasn't actually been convicted of anything, albeit I'm sure there is another side to the story. And yet they've thrown him out. So that, I mean, is that progress, I guess, in terms of the BBC's attitude towards such things?
Well, there's a few things that are interesting here. One, it's Tim Davies' final day, I think, today, right? And the new guy comes in with the new broom, and I wondered if he had issued some kind of edict, this guy Britain, to say, look, I don't want to come in to some kind of horrible, you know, bag of crap that I'm going to have to
Or a little gift to Tim Davies, you sack him, because otherwise I'm good, it's going to make you look bad that you didn't.
Exactly right. But I mean, it's the big question for me is if there was a police investigation in 2018, which is around about the time they started to promote this guy into quite big positions, right? I think the afternoon show on Radio 1, and then he suddenly got breakfast on Radio 2. If the BBC didn't know about the police probe into him, why didn't they in 2018? Surely they must have known. And they must have decided that if the police have decided there's not enough evidence to prosecute him, then that's okay.
Yeah.
Whereas now they've gone,
but now they think the world has changed on the basis of the focus being on the BBC for this kind of alleged behaviour. But then maybe they think they know more, and maybe there is more to come out. So they throw them under the bus before that
As
happens.
usual, they're being sort of economical with the truth. Mark Littlewood put out a great tweet last night in which he said, considering that I was forced to pay this man's salary for years and years and years and years, which is quite a high salary, over £360,000 a year. Basically, was sacked because he wasn't a pedo. It's always good to get the voice of reason on early in the morning. You know, the point is that he's right. You know, we as licence fee payers are forced to pay the salaries of these ridiculously overpaid characters, right? And so we deserve to know exactly what happened and exactly why they sacked him and what the reason is. Because if the police don't think there was enough evidence to prosecute him, what has he done wrong exactly?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you would hope that innocent till proven guilty still prevails. But of course, isn't it true?
It doesn't though, does it? That's the thing.
Well, no, it doesn't. And in media world and in terms of trial by public, I suppose it doesn't.
Yeah.
But isn't it true that you can't submit a freedom of information request to the BBC, apparently?
Oh, really?
So you can to local authorities, government and the Ministry of Defence or whatever. But even though the BBC is technically a public body, which we pay for through taxation effectively, as I understand it, I mean, it might be proven wrong. Maybe someone might want to comment and tell me if I'm right or wrong, but you can't FOI the BBC. Now, there has to be that fundamental change there, surely, on the basis that A, it's scandal here, B, it is a public authority run with public money. You should be able to FOI it till the cows come home. And if ever there was an organisation that needs a few FOIs, it's the BBC.
Yes. Well, exactly right. And they also try and sort of hide behind, like yesterday, put a statement saying we won't be making any further comment about individuals. Well, he's not an individual. He's an employee of the BBC.
Well, he's one of your
who
figureheads.
happens to be one of the high-profile presenters of one of your breakfast shows, watched by something like 5-6 million people every day.
But I think if that was ITV or Sky or News UK or whatever, they'd have the right to say that. I'm afraid when it's a public organisation paid for with public money, they don't have the right to pull the drawbridge up. They just don't.
Well, I mean, I think, quite frankly, there will no doubt be interest in this from Parliament, and the Media, Culture and Sport Committee will probably call it'll be his first job, won't it? He'll get in there, put his feet under the table. Right, any chance for a cup of coffee? Sorry, I can't call you darling. No, I'm sorry, we can't make you any coffee because you've been hoisted before the Parliamentary Committee to go and ask why yet another scandal-ridden presenter
before
has been
you've
fired.
even started.
You know?
Yeah, I know. And will it be the last? I suspect not.
I suspect not. But I mean, if they've changed their policy on, you know, what it is you can and cannot do as a presenter of a show on television or radio, then I think we ought to be told.
Well, I think it also means that there's going to be a lot more sackings in the next few days and weeks at the BBC.
Right. Angela says this: could you wish my son Joseph a happy 15th birthday? Absolutely, Angela. Happy birthday, Joseph, and long may your lumbrick, as they say in Scotland. Because it's Easter holidays, of course, for the school kids are all home, aren't they?
Yeah. And
I was on the tube yesterday. Crikey, there's nothing worse than the holidays where you've got there's two groups that you have to watch out for.
Tourists and school kids.
One, the school trips from places like France and Belgium, where there's literally dozens of kids walking backwards and forwards up and down platforms in the way. Then you've got parents taking their kids to the zoo or the science museum or whatever it is, and they all stop in the wrong place and they don't know where they're going.
Yep.
And it's quite irritating.
Yeah, more people.
I must think you're getting older.
More people will be surprised that you, as Mike Graham, actually uses public transport.
I've always done it. I mean, I don't know why people are surprised by that. I mean, I do love driving around in my Maserati, but to be honest, it's not the quickest way to get around London.
No.
Especially in the middle of the day. So when I go over to the gym in Oxford Street, I take the Jubilee line. It's the quickest way to go. You know, although I did have a bit of a mishap yesterday because where I live, it's quite a small street down by the river, and there's a little bus that runs up and down it. And I'm standing at the bus stop. About 10 minutes go on. This is about unusual. Some guy comes past. He goes, "Oh, mate, the bus stop's closed." I'm like, "What?
What?
They'd shut the bus stop.
Closed.
They'd shut the bus stop on the basis that the bus was on diversion."
More Sadiq Khan cuts.
Yeah, but you don't know. You never know why.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's nothing on on the app. It doesn't tell you that. I know these are problems that people probably don't care
all the time.
about.
Yeah.
But no, but it's just the whole idea that, again, Pooch and I were talking about it. You you can't get any information out of anybody. You want to get something done, you can't. Nobody can do it. You know, you think. I know they put a sign on the bus,
and the public authorities do things in such an arbitrary way. I mean, the fact that you stand there not knowing. When you're out and about then with the great public, do you get recognised?
I do.
Yeah. And generally positively.
Oh, always. Yeah. I think there's only once that I got somebody once when I was walking. After I did my evening show in the old days at Talk TV, and I was walking to the car park to get my car, and these two characters came and went, "Oh, it's Mike Graham. Oh, can we have a selfie?" And I was like, "All right." And as we did the picture, this guy said, "I detest everything that you stand for."
What, the guy that asked for the selfie?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I went, "Okay." I said, "Well, I don't really care as long as you're listening. You know, I'm quite happy if you disagree with me."
Yeah.
And
did he publish the selfie with a load of abuse, I wonder?
I don't know.
Would you?
I don't know. But no, I mean, everybody's always really nice. You know, in fact, I saw a guy yesterday, and it's the strangest of things. I mean, a guy came up to me once in Oxford Street from Dubai. He said, "I listen to you every day in Dubai. I'm just visiting London at the moment." Brilliant.
Well, I was in Dubai, as you remember, a few weeks ago, and I walked up to the bar by the pool, and the bloke said, "I saw you on Mike Graham show this morning." No, he did.
That's brilliant.
In the Four Seasons, Dubai.
By the way, we've now finally, you might not be able to see it because it's right behind me, but we've been looking for listeners and viewers in South America, and we got one yesterday who said he's in Buenos Aires. So we're able to put a little, and I even managed to get it in the right place, Pooch approved. When I said, I think this is where it goes, it's Buenos Aires. And so we've now finally got a dot.
Well, you didn't look it up, you just knew.
No, I just sort of knew, yeah. I mean, I should know, really. I mean, it's not that difficult, is it? Anyway, listen, we should run through some of the papers because there's a lot of other great stories that we need to talk about as well. Aside from the Scott Mills story, lots of warnings about the war. Aside from the 20 million a day for Rachel Reeves, Trump's threatening to obliterate the Iranian power plants. He's also now threatening...
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes.
...away from the war without opening the Straits of Hormuz.
Yeah, without having control of Hormuz, which I guess he's got to do as a signal to the markets, hasn't he? Because obviously they've not responded particularly well to what he's done.
But except if he doesn't reopen the Straits of Hormuz, the markets aren't going to move, are they?
Well, I guess. I mean, look, who knows? But look, one way or the other, I think the markets, the public needs some solace, don't they, in terms of what the outcome is going to be. Benjamin Netanyahu today has said that they are more than halfway through their desired outcome, whatever that means. Right. So I don't know what the outcome actually that they desire is.
Well, I think they want to see the end of it all, don't they?
Well, they want to see regime change, I suppose. Not quite sure they're going to achieve that. But I also hear that there's a load of, literally thousands of US Marines on those aircraft carriers just off the coast of Iran. And they're drilling, as we speak, getting off the boats and getting onto the land.
They are.
So but now, whether that's posturing...
Yeah, well, there's only about 20 to 30,000 of them, though. I know that sounds like quite a lot. But do you know how many they had in Iraq? 250,000.
Wow. Well, maybe
that's what they needed. And Iraq's a much smaller country.
Yeah. So I suspect that's a bit of posturing, a bit of a PR thing on the part of Trump. But look, for all the right reasons, this does need to end. But at the same time, I'm still, I wouldn't say I'm a fan of war before anybody starts kind of putting words in my mouth. But I think the fact that Trump has started this for all the right reasons in terms of that regime change and the fact that we should be reminded that the Ayatollahs, plural, are the worst terrorist enablers on the planet.
Of course.
I
think in a perfect world, we would want to see the end of all of that. Yeah. And we'd like to see Iran as a democracy, but you can't make it happen.
No, but no one wants to see the meltdown of world economies, of course.
No.
But I think that you're either for freedom and liberty across the planet, or you're not. And if it were a temporary thing in terms of, you know, the cost of your fuel has gone up by 10p a litre, but the consequence, the benefit, the result is that you're going to end up seeing regime change in Iran and fewer terrorist attacks across the West, by the way. I think that temporarily that's a small price to pay.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The other thing that we're being told is the IMF is warning that for some reason, I don't know why it's always this way, the UK is going to have the biggest sort of negative effect of an energy crisis.
Well, I guess it's because our energy costs are already the highest in the world anyway. So electricity, gas, obviously petrol now, especially if Rachel Reeves, I mean, in the most blinkered, cloth-eared way, decides, despite everything that's going on right now, to continue to add that 5% additional fuel duty to petrol and diesel. I mean, diesel's nearly at £2 a litre, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that will push it well over that. That will push it to 210 on its own. So, you know, as we've just said, most countries now are doing something about the cost of fuel, because of course, look, it's not just the fuel you put in your tank. It's not just the fact that it costs you now 80 quid instead of 70 quid to fill up your Discovery or whatever. It's the fact that that then goes through the entire supply chain. everything goes up. You know, the cost of bread, the cost of washing machines, you know, the cost of everything, the cost of getting a plumber to your house to fix a dripping tap, whatever it might be, all of that stuff goes up.
Yeah.
That then has a bearing on inflation, which means, without trying to give everybody a schoolgirl economics lesson here, we are much, much less likely to have interest rates drop. So in other words, interest rates might now start going up, which affects everybody in terms of their overdraft, their credit card and their mortgage because of this situation. Rachel Reeves and the government should do what Australia's just done, as you pointed out earlier, and to not subsidise the cost of fuel. So I don't think we should have checks arriving at our mats to help us.
But I think that's a bad idea.
The government should sidestep this cash cow that is electricity, is gas, and is petrol and diesel, and take off an element of that, an element of fuel duty. Give us a break.
And also an element of some of the subsidies, the green subsidies particularly, that we pay whenever we pay our electricity bill or our gas bill, which we are forced to pay by the government, which they could also reduce, because that just is helping the companies who are already now making a fortune.
People like Dale Vince.
Yeah.
And these people that want to put kind of, you know, solar panels on 250 acres of land like they do where I am in Shenfield, funny enough. That's about to come up. Yes, all of that is heavily subsidised. Of course, Reform have said that they're going to do away with those subsidies and pass that cost saving on to the public. It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
It really is, you would think so. A couple of clips to show you this morning. Let's kick things off just for a laugh with Donald Trump. This is from last night over in Washington, D.C. He was at some kind of gala function or other, and he did the YMCA dance with a sword, believe it or not.
Of course he did.
I know we're in the middle of a war, but, you know, this is... Nobody else could do that, really, could they?
It's like Saturday Night Live. They've just like got some AI thing to create a skit.
Well, there's so much going on there. Melania looks really, really happy for a start.
Yeah.
So remember all those people who said, you know, oh, she really hates him. She won't hold his hand in public. It's a nightmare. She's doing a little dance there.
Yeah.
He's saying hello. He always talks to the service people who were there, the two people in uniform, and they always love him, right?
Yeah.
But also, don't forget, this is a guy who's sort of macho man, has made a sort of gay iconic song into his theme tune.
Yes.
Without really missing a beat.
Yes, and
which is extraordinary.
And simulating the beheading of presumably the Iranian regime.
Presumably.
Lovely, with a sword.
Yeah.
Never happier than with a sword in his hand and a cake in front of him, clearly. JD Vance was quite happy. He was giving it a few shapes.
He was doing the old YMCA,
but his wife looked like she was wanting to be somewhere else, I think.
Well, Mrs. JD, I'm not sure about her. I don't know too much about her, really. But
I don't know. But JD Vance, probably the next president.
Could well be. Trump is hilarious, brilliant but nuts, says Robert. I mean, it just works, though. Somehow it works. Yeah. And, of course, Zak the Plank is trying to mimic Trump. I wonder if he is. He needs better teeth, though, if that's going to be the case. We'll give you some of that in a minute.
I think Trump's dancing is much better than Zak Polansky.
It really is. Oh, yeah. Now, there's something I've got to bring up with you, because you've got dogs, right? Let me show you this. I don't know if you saw this yesterday. The BBC, in the midst of their Scott Mills, you know, let's sack another presenter for consorting with teenage boys, we presume it's a boy, they put out this particular video. Have a look.
Are we all becoming too dog friendly? From coffee shops, restaurants and retailers like IKEA, Zara and John Lewis, dog friendly spaces are becoming easy to come by. There are 13.5 million pet dogs in the UK and 36% of households own at least one dog. But people who are allergic to dogs or afraid of them say that the rise of these dog-friendly spaces is a concern. One woman with the extreme fear of dogs told the BBC that she feels trapped and only goes out on special occasions due to the lack of dog-free zones. She's one of the many seeking support in online groups who offer advice on how to avoid them. But a coffee shop owner whose brand is underpinned by the dogs says that they're part of the family. What do you think? Has it all gone a bit too far?
Do you know what I think? Shut up, mate. What the hell are you talking about?
Seriously. So who is this guy?
I don't know.
You know, he's another one of these characters that appears on BBC television.
Yeah.
It turns out they've been employed for 10 years, you know, on a reasonably good salary of about 60,000 quid a year. To do what exactly?
Yeah, what is he, part of the anti-dog trust or something, is he?
Also, we've interviewed a nameless woman who has an extreme fear of dogs.
She only goes out on special occasions.
If I was in charge of the country, I'd lock her up.
Yeah.
She wouldn't be allowed out at all.
Yeah.
Never mind wanting to go out. How about you just go in a padded cell?
I don't think
it's such an extreme fear of dogs.
It's fair to say, I mean, particularly because of the way that dogs are seen in this country by the vast majority of people, as in, you know, they're a wonderful and essential part of a family unit.
Yeah.
I think anyone that doesn't like dogs, anyone that is anti-dog, like this particular individual here, you have to question their character.
You do,
really, in terms of what's wrong with them. And look, do you think also, and again, I'll probably get into trouble for saying this, albeit not here, but elsewhere, there is, of course, a very anti-dog approach by way of the Muslim community.
Yeah. I've
been on the tube with one of my Vishlers, and some Muslim women got on in full hijabs, and from what I could see of their faces, expression-wise, they were absolutely horrified.
Sorry. What, just their eyes were going a bit wide?
They literally went wide. They thought, because apparently Muslims think that dogs are dirty.
They do,
So
like pigs.
Is this part of that pandering to the Muslim community that we're seeing week in, week out in Britain? Is that video part of this pandering?
It is. I can show you this, because this was Scarlett Maguire, that sort of Labour lunatic woman who appears on GB News all the time.
For all the wrong reasons.
She was banging on about dogs a little while ago. Have a look at what she has to say.
We've got a problem. Actually it's a lot about the national parks and getting people out there and making national parks for everybody. And one of the problems is dogs. And actually, this isn't just about the fact that a lot of Muslims find dogs very difficult. It is about people who do not know how to control their dogs.
Why do Muslims find dogs difficult?
Because a lot of they don't have dogs as pets. They have dogs as.
But that shouldn't stop other people taking their dogs to the country, because there are some people there who don't like dogs.
There are a lot of, and as we know, and
hold that thought,
there are
guys.
a lot of very badly behaved dogs.
See you next hour.
Well, I hurriedly rush to a break in case somebody says something that might upset the Muslim community.
I'm going to suggest that maybe it's those rancid lefties that should be muzzled rather than dogs.
Well, I would certainly put a muzzle on old Zak Polansky to stop him biting anybody with those teeth. Sorry. But this is the thing. I once, you might not remember him, but there was a guy called Sean Dilley that used to work at TalkSport who had a seeing eye dog, or as I used to call them, blind dogs.
Yeah.
And people go, the dog's not blind. All right then. But they call them seeing eye dogs in America, don't they? What do we call them? Guide dogs.
Guide dogs. Yeah.
And he used to have a real problem, because if he tried to get into a taxi being driven by a Muslim, they wouldn't let him in. And he said, by law, my dog is my aid. You have to let the dog in. And so many of them wouldn't do it. And he ended up doing quite a few reports. And he said, he came in one day to me, and there was a restaurant in Stamford Street, Indian restaurant. And he said, do you fancy going for a curry? He said, I'll buy you a curry. He said, but the main reason is I want you to see what the reaction is when I go there with my dog. Right? And it was extraordinary. We went there, the door was closed, we opened the door, and this guy suddenly rushed across and kind of recoiled when he saw the dog. Right? And the place, it was sort of late Saturday afternoon, the place was practically empty. And he made us sit as far away as possible from the kitchen, and we had to sit in the corner. And he would sort of come over and like put the stuff down like that, you know. He wouldn't go near the dog. So they do clearly have a sort of irrational fear of dogs.
It's a cultural thing in other parts of the
world.
Well,
you know, sorry, again, if it's a cultural thing, you know, if you don't want me to bring my dog to your country, then fine. But you can't come to my country and tell me I can't have a dog. Right?
Well, I guess, you know, there are various animals in other parts of the world that are sacred, pigs, cows, and so on.
Right.
You know, I wouldn't slaughter a pig in the middle of Dubai High Street.
No.
You know, on the basis that might be seen to be offensive. You know, or to kick a cow in Mumbai. Right? I just wouldn't do that. Right? Because so. But
you wouldn't go to India, for example, and go, I've got an irrational fear of snakes. So that guy there who works as a snake charmer.
Get rid of him.
You know, he can't sit there, with his cobra.
No, it's...
You ever seen that, by the way? Snake charmers.
No, I hate snakes. Snakes are one of my biggest fears. Snakes and heights are my, I should say this right. Snakes and heights are my two biggest fears.
Snakes on a plane then, not for you.
That's why I used to hate talk in some respects, because it was on the 17th floor and it was very scary. Everyone looking out the window saying, what a lovely view.
You
not
don't
my
like
thing,
that?
not my thing.
But what about when you stay somewhere like the Four Seasons of Dubai and they give you a room on the 21st floor?
No, they didn't, thank goodness. I was on, I think, the second floor, which is just about okay. Yeah.
Mind you, after that earthquake in, was it Bangkok? Do you remember when the water was swishing out the buildings and the high-rise swimming pools? I'm never going in one of those again.
No.
You know, see you. I'm going over the side.
That's my worst nightmare.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely horrendous. Now, we've got a poll going out there because I don't know whether you've seen, and this is the sort of thing that doesn't happen very often, but therefore it's news. 38,000 bananas have been delivered to Orkney by mistake. I wonder if it was the people who thought they nicked all the Kit Kats in Poland, and they were going to send those, but instead somehow they got mixed up with bananas. Anyway, so the poll today is this. What has been Britain's biggest mistake? Electing Kier Starmer Prime Minister, funding Prince Andrew, Brexit, or hiring sex offenders at the BBC? That would be my choice. Apparently, you think so far, 94% of you think is electing Kier Starmer. Should we play old Starmer? Because he was out and about yesterday talking about the Iran war and how we're apparently not joining in.
Yeah, and how it's nothing to do with us,
Nothing to do with us, Gov, even though people are attacking Diego Garcia, which is one of our bases. We're allowing the Americans to use our bases to fly bombing raids over Iran.
This is how to say I'm a coward without actually saying I'm a coward.
Yeah,
there you go.
and trying to make out that it's all down to him, that we are not involved, as opposed to the fact that we haven't actually got any hardware. Anyway, have a look at this.
But as already been said, the backdrop to these elections is uncertain. We're facing a war on two fronts. The Ukraine war now, 4 and a bit years in, and let's salute the bravery of Ukrainians over so many years, both on the front line and the civilians, as they fight for the values that matter to us. And now the other front, the other war, which is the Iran war, which I know is causing huge concern. People look at their screens and they're worried when they see explosions, infrastructure blown up, the rhetoric that goes with it, worried about whether this is going to escalate even further. And therefore it's really important that I reiterate where I stand and where this government stands. Because this is not our war, and we are not going to be dragged into it. Yes, of course, we will defend British lives and British interests in the region, and we'll stand by our allies in the Gulf region. But we're not going to get dragged in. That's my values, that's my principles, and that's what we've applied to our decisions, whatever the pressure and whoever it's coming from. But what a contrast if you took Kemi Badenoch or Nigel Farage. What did they want to do? They wanted to go straight in with both feet into the war without thinking through the consequences. Now, they're in opposition at the moment. Maybe that doesn't matter very much, but it's terrible judgment. Because taking your country to war is the single most important decision a Prime Minister can ever take. And if they had been in government, would be in a war with no plan. Then you've got Polansky. He thinks that with a war on two fronts, now is the time to give up our NATO membership. Now is the time to start negotiating with Putin over our nuclear deterrent. We'd be left so weak and so exposed if any of those individuals were in government. And it's really important, therefore, that we stick to our principles, stick to our values, and show the leaderships that needed in a time like this.
Yeah, he says that if Reform were in charge, we'd be in the middle of a war with no plan. I'm sorry, we are in the middle of a war with no plan, aren't we?
Yeah, well, that's kind of what wars are.
That's kind of what, we have no
they
control
don't seem to
over.
go to plan.
By the way, where did he get with that central casting there? He's gone on, look, I've got to do this speech, right? So here's what I need, a couple of Sikhs. I need a boy that looks as if he's an orphan. He could be white. Put him down the bottom right. And then there's another strange-looking woman at the back. She could be a bit of a lesbian, don't know. Just make it look as diverse as you possibly can, and we'll be in good shape.
There's an acting agency in the West Midlands doing very, very well out of that, I think. And if anyone is struggling to sleep this morning, you want to get back to sleep, you've just watched that, and now
they don't look very happy either, do they?
No, well, would you?
No. I mean, I've got a great job for you this morning. What is it? Are you going to stand behind Kier Starmer and look interested?
And the great thing is, you listen to that speech. I mean, hard as it is to do, and 4 minutes later, you think, what did he actually say? I'm not actually sure he said anything. No. It's just word salad nonsense.
Because he's got nothing to say.
No.
You know,
obfuscation, cowardice.
Cowardice. I mean, what he doesn't mention is the fact that, as you said this on the Times front page this morning, £20 million a day extra coming in energy taxes to the Exchequer. So no wonder he doesn't want to knock the old.
He has threatened a few doctors though.
He has. You're right.
Tough on doctors, ish. Not really.
Tough on junior doctors. Apparently, he says that if you don't play ball with us and call off these strikes over Easter, we won't give you any more jobs.
Well, yeah, we're not going to then allow the extra 4,000 jobs that we've mooted. But I don't think the selfish junior doctors in Britain are going to give a toss about other people getting a job, are they? What they care about. And look, here's the stat for you. Do you know that the junior doctors over the last 3 years alone, do you know what their total pay rise is already without what they want?
50%.
35% already plus what they want. They've just turned down another 4%.
No, I mean, what they're hoping for is that within the period of 2 years of Labour government, their pay rises will have counted for 56%.
Yeah, but you know what their argument now is, they're now turning not just to, you know, the old argument about the past and what inflation was because of COVID and so on, so therefore we deserve this huge pay rise. They're now saying, well, actually, what we think is going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years is greater inflation because of the Iran war. So now what we want is a pay rise in anticipation of what's going to happen inflationary.
Yeah, that's nice, isn't it?
Madness.
Yeah,
madness.
Brilliant. West Street and the Health Secretary says the deal means for the most experienced resident doctors, basic pay would have increased to £77,348 and average earnings will have exceeded £100,000, right? First year medical students, fresh out of college, would earn £52,000 a year. 12,000 more than 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot of money.
They've now been, since 2023, so barely 2.5 years, they've now been on strike 13 times.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't smack to me of a sector or a profession that really cares about the patients that presumably they went into medicine to treat, to help and support, does it?
Well, you'd like to think so, wouldn't you? But of course,
I think they're just selfish bastards, aren't they?
Well, they are. There's no question. And if you see, and they're very clever at how they pick the dates as well, because the strike is supposedly going to start from April the 7th to April the 13th. Now, if you look at the old diary, right, April the 7th, guess what day that is?
Is that the day after Easter Monday?
It is. And then they go all the way through that week until the 13th, which is the following Monday. So basically what happens is they take off from approximately Maunday Thursday, which is the 3rd of April, and they won't be back at work till the 14th.
So if you see a load of Teslas parked in the medium-stay car park at Heathrow, that's the load of doctors that have gone off to Barbados under the pretence of striking.
Well, do you remember the last time they had one over Christmas, and they had the guy on from the BMA? He was on a skiing holiday in Italy, coming onto the BBC to say, well, of course, you know, we're having to sacrifice an awful lot.
And I also love how the British Medical Association, the BMA, sound like this nice, fluffy kind of union.
Yeah.
They are the most militant, aggressive, Marxist, left-leaning organisation. The British Marxist Association, yeah. So we should be very aware of the reality of that.
Yes.
And civil servants, of course, as well.
Yeah.
They're now threatening all sorts of things because guess what? They don't want to work in offices anymore. They've been dragged back into the office.
I thought you were going to say just don't want to work.
Rees-Mogg, or that, yeah. They were dragged back in, weren't they? You remember Jacob Rees-Mogg going and putting notes on everybody's desk saying, you know, come back to work, which obviously they didn't see because they weren't there, they were at home. But the Conservatives, in fairness, said you've got to spend 60% of your time as a civil servant in the office, not at home.
Shocking.
Civil servants are now saying because of the petrol crisis, they can't afford to get into work, so therefore they should be allowed to sit at home.
Well, hang on, don't they all get free travel on the tubes?
I'm sure.
And they get
and big salaries and a pension.
They get season tickets to come in and train.
And don't forget the pension that's about 3 times bigger than the private sector. Who are these mollycoddled
My
babies?
pension's about 3 times smaller than it was about a month ago.
When was the last time we heard of a doctor or a civil servant being fired? I think there should be some ceremonial firings of the public sector, don't you? Just to kind of send a message.
Just to send a message, absolutely right. Couple of final things, because Kelvin Mackenzie's back. He's in the house. Welcome, Kelvin. Good to see you. Romeo and Juliet, apparently, as a trigger warning, apparently involves themes like revenge.
Yeah, no, it does. This is a West End theatre, isn't it? That has decided that, I think it's the Harold Pinter Theatre. That's one to avoid from here on. Because apparently Romeo and Juliet, which was written about, 400 years ago, I think, is apparently offensive. Because it has such things as revenge within it and also grief, inverted commas.
Yes.
So there's big trigger warning. So before you book your tickets, you are actually given a warning that you might be upset or offended by Romeo and Juliet. Whatever next. Next.
Jesus Christ. Anyway, Russell, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Russell Quirk there with the news update, with all of the stuff that's come. We've got loads more to talk about, by the way, because not only are we going to talk about the latest BBC super scandal with Scott Mills, apparently we're told that there are some broadcasting outlets not discussing it because they don't wish to say the wrong thing and upset someone. or cause grief in any way, shape or form. So but you'll talk about it here. BBC crisis. Another scandal hit presenter is sacked. The question is when did the BBC know that the police were interviewing Scott Mills in 2018 for supposedly consulting with a teenager? I don't know what age the teenager was. But if they did know that that was going on, why did they give him such a plum job at Radio 1 and indeed Radio 2? We shall find out. First, though, let's get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes with your news. Oh joy, it's another glorious Tuesday in Blighty. Kier Starmer's boldly declaring Britain won't get dragged into Trump's latest Middle East adventure because nothing says strong leadership like politely declining a superpower's invite while hoping the adults sort it out. Meanwhile, our genius immigration summit is launching with all the fanfare of a wet lettuce, bold rhetoric on smashing people, smuggling gangs. But the small boats deal with France is apparently on the verge of collapse. Shocking. No one saw that coming. Councils are staring down bankruptcy as hidden special needs, debts finally, hit the books after years of creative accounting. Brilliant long-term planning there. Cargo theft is booming. Thousands of pints of Guinness and wheels of cheese vanishing like magic, while the economy wobbles under potential Trump tariffs and downgraded growth forecasts. Rachel Reeves insists her plan is working in this uncertain world. Sure, love, and the weather's lovely too. And in lighter news, gorillas are relocating from Bristol Zoo. Honestly, after today's headlines, who can blame them for wanting out? Stay sunny, Britain. At least the bin strikes and stolen cheese give us something to moan about over a lukewarm cuppa. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Hang on, we're back. Kelvin Mackenzie's back. Kelvin,
Hi there.
very nice to see you.
Yeah, very
welcome
nice
back.
to be invited. Yeah,
yeah. Well, listen, you're always welcome. We've got lots to talk about this morning.
Okay.
Not least, here's Pennant of the Day. Yeah, we spent ages and ages getting our, AI department to animate Edward Hughes with the news, because people said, "Can't you get him to move his lips?" And now we've got John saying, "I prefer the non-animated Mr. Hughes."
actually, I mean, it's a reasonable debate there. I actually prefer the animated one, to be absolutely honest.
I do.
But what is astonishing is that one exists at all, animated or non-animated. I mean, the way the things are going, I'm afraid, Mike, your days may be numbered as well. They might have an animated Mike.
They might.
Mike Graham, and I doubt whether they'd have an animated Kelvin Mackenzie because of his age. But
well, no, they might well do, because then you become ageless, and so age actually wouldn't be an issue.
Correct.
And then you go, well, you don't have to worry about whether Kelvin's going to make it in 5 days a week, because we've got an AI version of him when he's not here. But funnily enough, Carol Decker was in the other day.
Carol Decker? What?
Carol Decker from Tapau, right?
Oh,
China in My Hand, right? Because she's coming to our live show. She's got a new album out. She's doing a tour.
Is she?
And I was talking to her about how the thing about, for me anyway, AI, you can't possibly impersonate me, because even I don't know what I'm going to say before I say it, right? But she said it's quite terrifying in the music business, because she said they actually did it. They said, write a song in the style of Tapau and sing it in the style of Carol Decker. And she said, you wouldn't have known it wasn't me.
Correct. And of course, the number of musicians in work are declining at an astonishing and painful rate. Why? Because AI versions of music, i.e. guitars, bassoon players, trumpets, are absolutely pitch perfect. And actually, you don't need those backing players anymore, and that is really, really painful for people.
And the only thing really that's saving the music industry right now, as far as I'm aware when I speak to people, is the live music business, because you can't replicate an AI, you can't have an AI show. I mean, you can, but who needs it?
Yes, but what it means is,
Although that ABBA show apparently is doing very well, the ABBA holograms.
I've seen the ABBA.
Have you?
It is.
Who dragged you to that?
Pardon?
Who dragged you to that? Did you voluntarily go to that? I mean,
do you mind? I am out and about. At my age, you have to go and have a look at something, because it may be the last time that you hear it. No, everybody should go and see the ABBA thing.
It was your new wife, wasn't it?
Astonishing.
Was it your new wife? She said, "Come on, Kelvin, let's go and see." And you went, "Yeah, all right then." I would not go to that. Sorry, I would
Why
draw
wouldn't
the
you
line.
go to that? Honestly, that is a massive piece of bloody misery. And I hope your next romance collapses, you horrible person.
Well, they always do. I wouldn't worry about that. Anyway, listen, let's talk about the BBC.
The BBC.
This, I was told this morning that Sky News were not discussing this. Now, I wasn't aware because I wasn't watching it because I don't watch Sky News in the morning. But the order went out that, we don't need to discuss this story. We've got it out as a news story, but we don't want to have any conversations about it, for fear of offending
right. Well, it's
either
run,
Scott Mills or the audience.
It's run by an idiot, Sky News, an American idiot.
David Rhodes.
He's so poor that not even News UK hired him.
Yeah, I know.
When given the opportunity.
Well, he did. I worked with him at News UK briefly. Yeah.
Oh right.
He's a nice guy actually, but
yeah, but that's the point. Nice. Yeah. By the way, nice doesn't buy you a donut.
It doesn't.
Nice does not get you on the bus.
No.
Okay. So having the word nice after you, it's been a disaster for him at Sky News. By the way, the audience has absolutely collapsed,
cliff, isn't it? Yeah.
And that's because it's a load of left-wing wokery nonsense, of which that decision will be entirely in line. I mean, that is the scandal has still properly to be played out.
Oh, I believe that.
But if it is, as reported in the Mirror this morning, that in fact that there was an allegation involving a 16-year-old, the best part of a decade ago, a sexual allegation involving Mr. Mills and a 16-year-old. If that turns out to be true, the scandal is, I think, in line with what you said just ahead of the news, which was, why on earth did they give him the plum job in certainly in Radio 2? But the audience is absolutely massive, isn't it? It's a massive audience.
It's not as massive as it was, but I mean, it's still massive.
Yeah, no, but by commercial terms, it's huge.
But also, the thing is, if the police, we're told there was a police investigation, right?
Yep.
In 2018, we're told that the police investigation was carried out and it was determined that there wasn't sufficient evidence, not no evidence, but not sufficient evidence to mount a prosecution, so they didn't do it.
Yeah.
I find it astonishing if the BBC didn't know that was going on. Surely the BBC would have known, because he was employed by the BBC in those days. They must have known that he was being investigated by the police.
Well, the way it all works, of course, you work for any company, actually, in some odd way, it all comes out, So even if the police, what the police would not have done is they wouldn't have gone to the employer and said, do you know, we're talking to this guy.
Right.
However, there would have been pressure on the employer, actually. I'm not sure whether he to say something. I'm not sure. They would have known. They would have known.
If he had a smart PR, which I understand he had a very smart PR, surely the PR would have said to the BBC, just a heads up, this is going on. There's nothing to worry about.
No. If he had a smart PR, he would have kept absolutely stum about it on the basis that he said, actually, it's not true. Right. Therefore, let's just play this out. However, so what has happened? The thick end of 8 years later, what is it that now says, what is unique about this is effectively he was fired on the spot.
Yeah.
Right? So there's no ifs and buts about that. So he's fired on the spot.
Yeah, because on Tuesday...
Whereas Hugh Edwards, despite the fact the allegations of him were of a much more... I don't know how serious these allegations are. Right, he was suspended.
Yeah, he was.
So
on full pay.
Yeah. So the Times is reporting today that the reason that he was fired on the spot was that Davey leaves next Tuesday and wanted to, quote, clear his desk.
Yeah. Well, I wondered if it was this new guy coming in, this guy Britain, was also involved in saying, I don't want to come into a whole kind of, a storm of nastiness. So if you've got anything hanging around that you know about, you better deal with it before I come in the office.
Right.
I wonder if that's
I'm
the case.
Davey.
Right?
I'm Davey. If it comes to me like that, it comes to me like that. I said, you've come to the wrong bloody address here, mate. You can have this huge turd yourself. Boom, I'm off. No, I would have thought it was very serious of some kind or another. And the
actual incident was supposed to have been like even longer ago than that. It was like back end of the 90s, wasn't it? Isn't that the allegation? That when the teenage boy was approached or whatever happened to him, that actually happened around about the late 90s. And this was then a police investigation in 2018. That's my understanding of what happened. So it's been going on a long time.
Okay. And he himself has given multiple interviews, hasn't he, this guy Mills, who I wouldn't know, I don't listen to Radio 2.
No, me neither.
He's given multiple interviews saying, I'm very lucky to survive.
Yeah.
Perhaps he knew all along at some stage that it's going to come back and, if you excuse the expression, bite him.
Yes.
Which is probably extra.
That may well be. That may not be part of the allegation. I'm not sure. I can't be sure. But I mean, once again, it looks as though the BBC, I mean, you've run organisations before, have handled it really badly. You know, he leaves, does his last show on Tuesday, and goes, see you guys tomorrow. It brought back a few memories for me, it has to be said, Kevin.
Actually, that is the way it does.
I was in the same boat when I said, I'll see you guys tomorrow, and then I never came back.
Well, you could... But you may be seeing them tomorrow because you might be buying the company.
Well, very much so. But yeah, it's a bit like the government. Every chance they get to handle something badly, they handle it badly.
I don't really buy that on this particular case. I think that some evidence came forward that made it certain that they had to act, and they did act. And the thing is, I rather buy the argument. The BBC employs 22,000. Has 22,000 employees.
Yeah.
Look, if you run an organisation of 22,000, there's going to be issues left, right, and centre. And I think him being slung out, it's very interesting that if this allegation does involve a 16-year-old, and the Hugh Edwards allegation involved a 16 or 17-year-old, I can't quite remember. Yeah. Right? What is it about the sexuality of the people that they employ at the BBC that thinks that they are above the law and are allowed to basically prey and be predators of young
and that was certainly the case when Hugh Edwards was there, because we know people personally who were victims of his preying, who he used to, send messages to, who he used to wait. There was one particular guy that worked with us over at News who said he used to wait for him outside the building, try and get him to go for a drink. I mean, all this kind of stuff, which clearly must have been known about.
Well, that was
and you say 22,000 people, and yes, that's true, but these are the talent. And if you look at how many talented, people in the talent department, it's a very high proportion of people who misbehave. It would seem to me.
Yes, because there's obviously power associated with their job. When they walk into a room, a lot of people come towards them, whereas when you walk into a room, you're like the red arrows. It goes like that.
You see, this is why we love him, because, he doesn't mind making himself look stupid on air and getting things wrong. It's fantastic. Anyway, listen, we've got Ralph Schulhammer with us today. And if you don't mind, Ralph, thank you very much indeed for waiting. Where are you? Last time we spoke to you, you were in Rome. Where are you today?
No, today I'm in Budapest. So, all over the place.
Great stuff. Now, we must talk about the state of play in Western Europe because, we are apparently going to be the biggest sufferers of this energy crisis as it happens. What are the Europeans saying? What are the European governments saying about this war? Because we can't get any sense out of Kier Starmer. What are they saying over there?
Well, it's going to be it's going to be a hierarchy of pain that we all facing here, because nobody's going to get out of this unharmed. The German Chancellor has somewhat shifted his tune. He was first supportive, now he no longer is supportive. But the bottom line is the same, right? We talked about this previously. For the United States, the only way forward is through. So I said this before, this is an unpopular opinion. It's not something I personally enjoy very much, but the reasonable thing to do would be, even if we hate it, to help the United States to get this thing done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, as quickly as possible, though, doesn't sound very quick, does it? I mean, it looks as though certainly the Israelis are saying we're only halfway through. We don't know what Trump's going to do. He says he might pull out of the war immediately, but that doesn't solve the crisis.
No, but the question is, right, the crisis gets worse the longer it drags on. And it's quite obvious by now that the United States, it did not entirely pan out the way they planned. I think the best indicator is that by the end of this month, originally Trump was supposed to meet Xi Jinping of China in Beijing. And as far as I know, they postponed this meeting, which tells me that they originally thought that by the end of March, by early April, all of this will be, basically, done and done. And this did not happen. But the United States, in their current position, they cannot retreat. For a very simple reason. You see now that this area is still, despite the changes we had globally, so crucial that if the United States would do a taco, right, that Trump always chickens out, if they would simply leave, they then basically would hand over the Middle East to Iran as the new hegemon. And the United States cannot do this. Once again, I'm not making a moral argument here. I'm making a purely geopolitical, geostrategic argument here. Like, I completely agree with your viewers. This is not our war. This shouldn't have happened. Was it a big blunder? Like, all of that I'm not in disagreement with. But I think for the United States, if they want to maintain their role as maybe not the unipolar power, but as the major global power, they cannot retreat. It's absolutely impossible from their point of view.
Yeah, so it could go on for a very long time. And as far as the energy crisis part of it is concerned, we've got our own North Sea oil and gas, which the government is refusing to still exploit, despite the fact that we have the most expensive energy prices in the world, right? Which is complete madness. What's happening in Germany and places like that? Are they going on for coal?
Just as a quick point, I mean, I find the circular argument made by members of the British public and the British government absolutely insane. So you stop drilling in the North Sea, so you stop exploring in the North Sea. If you stop exploring, you cannot find new resources. And then you say, because there are no new resources, there is no point in drilling. I mean, the Norwegian find new stuff all the time, and it's pretty much the same oil and gas fields that they're exploiting. So the amount of gaslighting, no pun intended, and lies the British populace is confronted with is absolutely astounding. I mean, if you go back to the 1990s, when the Brits did actually a very good job with gas exploration, I mean, Europe was more or less, and that includes Western Europe to answer your question, was more or less energy independent. Not perfectly, right? Not perfectly, but it was in much better shape than it is today. I mean, whether it's Great Britain leaving oil and gas behind, supposedly leaving oil and gas behind, whether it's Germany turning off fully functioned, paid off nuclear power plants. I mean, all of this is madness. It's even worse, I have to admit, when I hear Ed Miliband talk about the rooftop solar revolution. I mean, no disrespect to you or your viewers, but I think we can all agree that, the United Kingdom is not known for, its plentiful sunny days.
It really isn't, but it is known for its completely idiotic energy ministers, however. And also, they've managed to somehow make not only Britain the world's most expensive consumer of energy in terms of how much we pay for it, but also we are now going to be the world's most badly affected country by the energy crisis in the Middle East because of that.
And the worst part is I'm afraid that they will double down on the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Right? So the so-called energy transition, and that has been going on, just to put this in perspective, but the energy transition has been going on for nigh on 30 years now. So at some point it has to deliver. And I mean, it is delivering in the negative sense, but my fear is that now everybody in Germany and the UK is going to double down on it, right? They will say, the reason why we have these problems is because we don't have enough rooftop solar. It's because we don't have enough wind turbines.
That's right.
Instead, doing the reasonable, sensible thing, which, by the way, every country in Asia is now doing, is also returning to coal, is returning to gas, right? Is using these reliable forms of energy. Listen, in a peaceful world with no great power competition, with globalization where we all cooperate, where we all are friends, I'm all for the green transition, because then you can say, oh, fine, we get gas from Russia, we get it from Norway, we get it from Qatar, and everybody is just doing as well as they can in a world that consists only of friends. But we are no longer in this world. Again, I wish we would be. We are no longer. It's like the 90s TV show Friends, right? It had a good run, but now it's over and you cannot revive it.
Yeah, we can't revive it at all. But there is a story that Germany is going to ramp up its coal power, which they kind of started to do over the Russian problem back in, 4 years ago.
No, not just the Germans, Mike. The Italians, who were talking about ending coal this year or next year, they are now planning to postpone it by 15 or 18 years. Everybody is returning to coal. This is the next big lie, right? In an actual energy crisis, the way we are seeing now, countries are not turning to wind and solar, they are turning to coal, as it had always been. 2025 was supposed to be the peak year of coal consumption. Didn't turn out like this. So we were told, no, 2026 is going to be the peak year of coal consumption. It's going to be a peak year because countries will use more coal than ever for the very reasons that we have just discussed.
Yeah, and I was reading this morning that Bangladesh, for some reason, is now going to be the first country in the world that actually runs out of fuel. They're worried that this is going to be the week that they're going to literally have no fuel.
No, I'm glad you mentioned this, Mike, because this is the next big irony. Because what's going to happen, as there is an energy shortage, Europeans are going to buy as much energy as they can. And this means that poor countries will once again be even poorer. I mean, this is, again, the hypocrisy of basically outsourcing the suffering of the energy transition to other countries. I think, is in some ways, I think it's fair to say, is a crime against humanity, or at least against parts of humanity.
Yeah, definitely is. And you're off to Washington, I hear. Are you going to go and visit the White House while you're there?
No, but I think I'm at liberty to share. No, it's the usual, kind of networking stuff. But I believe that we have to find strategies, for Europe, for the UK to play a productive and prosperous role in whatever kind of new world order is going to take shape. Because things are changing. I know. This sounds like an old trope. We heard this many times. We heard it in 2001. We heard it in 2022. But I think now it really is true. Things are changing. The world is entering a new phase. Very interesting, very exciting. But at the end of the day, it's important for me that continental Europeans and the British people come out on top or as close to the top as possible. And I think this should be a priority for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, good to see you. And obviously, when you go to Washington, you'll be back, right?
Of course, I'll be back, and I hope on a more regular basis. I felt betrayed that I wasn't on last week, and I hope that the audience sees it the same way.
I know. It's absolutely a shocking state of affairs. I blame Pooch and Charlotte for that. But listen, maybe come by the studio next time you're in town, and we'll be
I would love to, Mike.
To buy you a pint. Thank you very much indeed. Ralph
Thanks,
Shawhammer
Mike.
there saying he thinks there's a new kind of world order coming, Kelvin. I mean, I think he's not wrong about that, is he?
The UK is in a shocking state.
Yeah.
I don't know whether the order means that we're going to rise up or we're going to go further down. I heard that former NatWest chairman reveal yesterday that when it comes to borrowing money, i.e. what does a world business think is a safer bet? And the answer turned out to be Greece ahead of the UK, i.e.
Really?
we have to pay 5% for money that the government borrows. Greece pays just under 4%. Now, when you think how bankrupt, you wouldn't have to have a long memory to know the times when they slashed all the pension, abandoned all the benefits.
Yeah.
They did, unemployment went through the roof. We are, if our government, if Starmer continues to spend money we haven't got, that price continues to go up. At some point, we're not going to be able to pay it. So something has got to change. And I am sick to my back teeth of reading him saying we can't do it on our own, turning to the oil execs. He didn't take that view. That view when he gave 6.3% rise, twice the level of inflation, to anybody claiming benefits, right? Then he said, we can do it on our own. So it's a matter of priorities.
Everything is.
His priorities are the skint and the dim, right? The skin, idle, dim socialists, SCIDS, as I like to, as the acronym of the day, right? That's his priority. Everybody else who has to fund everybody, who now, honestly, if you took walking sticks out of London, right, you could have the biggest bonfire in the world. I have never, because when you have a stick, what it means is that when the DSS are actually videoing you, because we don't believe that you're that man, you've always got that. So there's no chance of you getting done. Now, that's slightly unfair because there are people who have bad hips and they are entitled to.
Yeah, but again, it's the new bad back, because it used to be back pain that used to get you all sorts of disabilities now. Now it's anxiety. Yeah. You don't even have to stick for that. You can just you just look at somebody and go, do you feel anxious? Yeah, absolutely.
No, you don't even look at anybody anymore. What you do is you just fill in a form.
Yeah, right.
And he said, how anxious are you? He said, well, I'm so anxious, I'd like to drive a Porsche or a Range Rover with my Motability. And they said, well, that has disappeared. So I'm walking down this, I think it's Berkeley Street, which leads to Berkeley Square. Yeah. On the right-hand side, there's a BYD, the Chinese,
I know it.
Right, which is basically subsidised cars being dumped on the UK. Okay, prices we can't correct. The biggest sign on the glass is not BYD, it's a great car. The biggest sign is a sign that says Motability, right? Yeah. I.e., you can get a good deal. We should not, under any circumstances, be supplying our hard-earned taxes, which is the reason this business exists at all, the hard-earned taxes to cars that are not made in the UK. I'm in favour of actually, if I don't know, if some kind of car is being made here, which is a foreign car, right? yeah, that's okay, right? If we had an English car industry, do you remember that? Do you remember Red Robbo and all that rubbish?
Red Robbo, yeah.
And all that crap, right? Okay, but to have the insult that China, right, who steals any tech, steals any idea, never pays for it, right, comes over here, dumps their car at a subsidised rate, funded by the government. We, in turn, are giving our taxes in order to allow people who claim that they have some kind of disabled, right, to drive around in that. That should stop. I was absolutely appalled at seeing that.
I know, absolutely shocking. Shocking. I'm going to shock you even more coming up after the news because I've got a video to show you of what I would call Lawless Britain. You might have already seen it, but basically it's a kind of ram raid, if you like, on a Marks and Spencer's shop in South London. And I've also got a story to tell you, which we were submitted by one of our viewers about how dreadfully badly the police are at going after shoplifters, even when they're presented with evidence. But we'll do all that coming up, Kelvin Mackenzie, after the news at 8 o'clock with Edward Hughes.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes with your news. Oh joy, it's another glorious Tuesday in Blighty. Kier Starmer's boldly declaring Britain won't get dragged into Trump's latest Middle East adventure, because nothing says strong leadership like politely declining a superpower's invite while hoping the adults sort it out. Meanwhile, our genius immigration summit is launching with all the fanfare of a wet lettuce, bold rhetoric on smashing people, smuggling gangs. But the small boats deal with France is apparently on the verge of collapse. Shocking. No one saw that coming. Councils are staring down bankruptcy as hidden special needs, debts finally, hit the books after years of creative accounting. Brilliant long-term planning there. Cargo theft is booming. Thousands of pints of Guinness and wheels of cheese vanishing like magic, while the economy wobbles under potential Trump tariffs and downgraded growth forecasts. Rachel Reeves insists her plan is working in this uncertain world. Sure, love, and the weather's lovely too. And in lighter news, gorillas are relocating from Bristol Zoo. Honestly, after today's headlines, who can blame them for wanting out? Stay sunny, Britain. At least the bin strikes and stolen cheese give us something to moan about over a lukewarm cuppa. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Edward Hughes there with the news. Coming up, we've got loads and loads of great videos to show you. Kelvin will be driving up the M1 the wrong way on a Chinese mobility scooter soon. Yeah, that's another racket, isn't it, on mobility scooter scenario. Listen, we've got some great news, breaking news here at the Mike Graham Show, and it is this. We are now enabled to take calls from you, right? But at the moment, because it's a bit of an experiment, it's a bit of a trial period, we're going to give it only to Substack users, right? So if you've paid for a subscription on Substack, you will have had a link sent to you last night in which you can call up and get yourself on the show. Obviously, we're going to develop this as time goes on, but it's a bit of an experimental day today. So if you do want to do it, you know what to do. Go on the Substack, you'll find a link there, you can get through to us and we'll take your calls. And as I say, try and make it interesting and try and keep it clean, because otherwise we won't be able to do it. Simple as that. Now, before we do anything else, Kelvin Mackenzie's back with us today. We've talked about all sorts of things so far, but I want to show you this piece of video. This was passed on to me by Norman Brennan, who's a former police officer. And this is a scene from a Marks and Spencer's shop in Clapham in South London. Have a look at this. So what you see there, basically, is a load of masked youths who have decided, it's Easter holidays, right?
Yeah.
So they're probably school-age kids, I would imagine. And I'm hearing more and more stories like this, where a gang of kids goes in and sort of basically, effectively ram raids a shop, runs out with whatever they can get their hands on, right? And before the police can even arrive, and you saw 3 police officers there dispersing them, and they eventually go. But 2 things. 1, why are people allowed to run around wearing masks? Right, without showing their faces. 2, how have they become so empowered that they're not scared of the consequences? Because all of those kids will have got away, not recognised, not identified, probably not even arrested.
Yes, and also thought to themselves, this is an easy life.
Yeah.
I must remember to leave school. Or actually, it caused enough trouble at school that I get told, actually, do you mind, which is what's happening, do you mind working from home?
Yes.
So that you don't have that problem. So the reality, so that is a shocking piece of film, and it's in a diverse, mixed area, wasn't it? It was Croydon. Imagine
Clapham.
In Clapham,
Yeah.
Which is also diverse in that area. And can you imagine how the employees felt, right? Ordinary people, M&S employers, there's an M&S around my way, first-class people. Imagine how they feel about seeing this and then nothing happening. This reminds me, there was a court case yesterday, and this is one of the areas that these youngsters now feel above the law. This guy steals, unbelievably, 2,000 quid's worth of Holland and Barrett and boots.
Oh, yes, I saw your tweet about this.
Yeah, right. So he's 17.
Yeah.
This has been going on for 2 years. He's a hardened criminal.
Yeah.
This is not a kid. His name is never mentioned.
Right.
So he never has the spotlight of his face or his family feeling the shame or what the truth is about this kid, right? Nobody knows. These kids know that as well.
Yeah.
So even if they're arrested, what is the penalty they face? Do actually their parents care? And by the way, do their parents even know what's going on?
Exactly.
Your M&S, right? This is a cost to you, right? This is a cost to you and a cost to your shareholders. Nobody cares about them. So nobody cares about the employees. Nobody cares about the shareholders. And actually, so these kids know, and they know that the penalty they face is non-existent.
Exactly.
So they end up in a youth court, we'll say. The chances of ending up in a youth court are nil. Because look at those officers there. If you slowed down that film, literally showed it again, and let us talk over it, those officers are not trying to arrest.
No.
And
they're just
I
trying to
don't blame them.
disperse.
Yeah, just move it.
Well, I've got something else for you, right?
Go
This
on.
is something that was sent to me because I was asking about people's interactions with the police, right? And this came into our Substack again yesterday from somebody called Mojo. It's a long story, but bear with me. Here's my story about the police. My 19-year-old daughter is a supervisor in a sports shop which has regular incidents of shoplifting. The police never seem to investigate, and there are regulars who come in to steal the most expensive brands. Clearly, they have made a business of reselling them elsewhere. Police could get the CCTV to pick them up, but they don't. In August last year, she was deliberately assaulted by two men who violently pushed her outside the shop door as she was locking up at closing time. They had grabbed £500 worth of clothes, though she managed to grab some of it off them as they were escaping. My daughter was very shocked and upset. We reported this crime to the police, as the shop wouldn't, and the police called us 5 days later. I upset the police lady by telling her the reason we had reported instead of the shop. She said she took her job seriously and was offended by me. There should have been 40 minutes worth of CCTV footage of these characters in the shop. However, the police failed to request the footage and texted me 2 months later to tell me they would not investigate, blaming a computer error. Right? I asked them to call me and gave them short shrift over the phone. They then said they had two different teams to investigate. It sounded like being put into a queue. There is one team who does the initial report and then it goes to another team. In the meantime, all the evidence was lost. I made them promise to double check with the shop, which they agreed to do. However, they left a message with the shop manager to say they were dropping the case because there was nothing more they could do. CCTV evidence is only kept for 1 month and only the police can request it. Imagine my fury when my daughter told me 2 weeks ago there are HQ who look into profit and loss had kept the CCTV evidence for much longer. It would have been available for the police if they had bothered to ask for it. I am beyond disgusted with them. We have just made an official complaint to their policing standards authority. That is the reality.
I'm afraid, shocking that is. That's a pretty good note, by the way, on your Substack. And I suspect that Substack, once people begin to understand that they will have a voice for their anxieties and criticisms, will do very well for the Mike Graham Show.
Yes,
and
I think so.
And those that are watching right now should make an effort to spread the news. Right. I imagine a version of that story.
Yeah.
You could probably write it, perhaps 100 times a week.
Easy.
And actually, in a funny way, I don't really blame the police. All right, there will be. I hate blaming the cops. I must be honest with you. There is something within me. I can't really do it. Right, no matter really almost whatever they do. their job has now become basically impossible. Not helped, I suspect, by the parents, or even lack of parents. Have you seen the number of crimes being committed by people who come to this country, right? They come here illegally and they're just hanging around, and they can carry out any crime because actually they don't face any consequence because they're not in their homeland. Supposing they go to jail for a couple of years.
Well, they won't go to jail, will they?
And
there's no spaces.
Yeah.
So they know that, right? They'll get back to the hotel.
Yeah. So I'd like to hear from any of the parents who might have recognised their own children marauding through M&S yesterday. I'd like to hear how do they feel about watching their children act like this, and why is it that they feel that they're not in control of them, right? And is it? I raised this question: is it an issue only of minority children, or is it an issue involving white children and children?
I suspect it's universal. I suspect. I mean, I see it in my sort of travels variously because I go through different parts of London. You know, when I'm on the tubes or whatever it is, where I live. Part of it is quite nice. Part of it isn't. You know, near Bermondsey. Yeah. And there's a lot of what you might call kids who've got Spanish parents, kids that have got Asian parents, kids that have got mixed race kids. But they're all. I mean, the sort of the good part about it, I suppose, is that they're all in the same gang together. It's not one particular ethnic mix. It's just a very mixed group. Right. But they're all quite sort of leery. You know what I mean? You know, once they get to about 14, 15, if you see a bunch of them coming down the road towards you, you're kind of going, all right, well, mate, what am I going to have to deal with here?
Right? Correct.
That's how I feel.
To the point where really you'd rather cross the road than accidentally brush into one or they don't move, so you either move into the road or something happens. Right. Now, but take the M&S. Take the M&S position of that. For instance, I'd love there to be a police officer. If you get ex-police officer to come in and sit here tomorrow and go through it on slow motion, asking what on earth can we do? Because one of the problems about that appearing on social media is actually it's a recruiting sergeant for other kids in other parts of the country. Because they'll go, this is fun. Yeah, this looks like fun.
It's like the other thing they do, right?
It's the Easter holidays.
I don't know if you've seen this, but one of the things I've witnessed it in Oxford Street and right in the middle of West End London, just past Selfridges, a gang of about must have been 40 of them coming down on bikes, doing wheelies, right? But they're coming down mob-handed. They don't care about the lanes. They're going on both lanes, going right up to taxis and cars and swerving at the last minute. It's intimidating, right? It's frightening for people. And you stand watching it and you can't quite believe it because it's basically like Mad Max. It's like it's their city, not mine.
Correct. But, okay, that, by the way, I imagine is damn scary, right? Damn scary watching these kids doing all that. Yeah. Okay, so then what can be done? Okay, so first of all, you need a mayor for a city like London who says, this is not acceptable. Yeah. Call in the Met Commissioner and say what can be done. And the Met Commissioner quite rightly says, I haven't got enough officers to deal with the crime in London. He said, well, how much do you need? Right, and boom, then start working that out. And then we have Oxford Street Police because they are turning Oxford Street into a pedestrian zone, aren't they? Can you imagine what that's going to be like if you've got gangs literally going up and down? So then what happens is people are arrested, but instead of having some kind of anonymity in which they're yet another collection of young kids who are causing troubles in London, they get named, and then they get some decent sentences.
You know what I'd do? I'd build a cage, right? Put it right outside, Selfridges or what used to be Debenhams. Yeah. And you get nicked. You go in the cage for 3 hours, and you stand there, and people walk past, and there's a big sign on it that says, "These people are criminals."
I quite like the idea. The only thing I don't like is the 3 hours. How about 3 months?
Okay.
Just leave them in there for 3 months.
I don't want them here overnight, as they say in Casablanca. But, there's got to be some kind of drastic Giuliani-style action like he did in New York. Yeah. The broken windows scenario and all that, It's got to be done. If you see these kids on bikes, you take the bikes, you crush them in front of them. You've got some kind of, bike crusher and just chuck it in.
That's not a bad idea.
All of those things.
Can you imagine the collection of not half-witted, actually, rather cunning, slimy lawyers who will be looking at that thinking there's some good money to be made with the Mike
with
Graham,
legal aid.
with the Mike Graham law.
Yeah, right.
I like the idea of crushing the bikes. After all, they'll crush a car, won't they?
They'll crush a car
if you don't pay your fine for parking. The next thing that'll happen is your car is in the crusher somewhere. So that's a good idea.
That's a good one.
So you ought to have a vote on that. The answer to that is there'd be 100% naught, wouldn't it?
Well, of course. I mean, something just came up there was the good idea about with reference to benefit payments, right? How about if caught and convicted of a crime, you can't receive any benefits for 5 years, so kids don't become universal credit scroungers. That's good too, because that could then be any kind of crime, right? Literally anything, right? As opposed to a custodial crime, it could be any crime, and then you're not, and then you could even put it on the parents. If you're a parent and the kid is underage, under 16, you punish the parents, and then see if they change their view.
Well, what is clear, I was really shocked by that M&S.
It's terrible, isn't it?
M&S film. What is clear is that there is no fear. That's your main takeaway from all this. And also for the police to face how many of those kids were there?
It looked like about a good
30,
25,
40.
30, yeah.
Yeah, 30.
Easy.
30. There was 3 officers there trying to push them aside.
Yeah.
Look, I don't blame the cops. I don't know what could be done, but presumably you'd have to turn up with half a dozen Black Mariahs.
Yeah, you would.
And usher them all in there. Yeah. And would they consider that a day out? And if they did consider it a day out, the kids, what does that say about their parenting? And what does that say about whereabouts in Clapham was it?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I presume, what is it, Lavender Hill? When you go down there, probably down. That's where most of the shops are. I guess it's around there.
Well,
so it's a fairly central shopping area. It's not like.
And actually, some parts of Clapham,
Clapham, they call it, don't they?
It's rather
posh.
Yeah, it is. It costs you a fortune.
Yeah,
to live there.
But that's the thing. I mean, anyway, listen, we'll talk about it because also there was that story yesterday in the Sun, a really good sort of number of stats that they picked up. That 92% of burglaries now remain unsolved in this country, and out of some ridiculously large number, like 285,000 cases reported, about 400 people were convicted.
Yes,
it's just shocking.
There is no way of catching burglars these days, and so we are giving up what we thought was an important kind of law and order idea. Do you remember that? When actually, where parties got elected on the basis that they were strong on crime, right? Now, if you mention that's a bit unfair. That's a bit unfair, because look at how much poverty there is out there and all the rest of it.
I know.
So no party, I don't even hear Reform saying they're very tough on crime. I don't hear the Tories saying it. And honestly, then you get the Greens. So if you've got the Greens looking at that video right now, would they be actually saying, well, the reason that they're doing this is because there is poverty in our country and all the rest of it? So they would be acting actually on behalf of the
they
mob.
think people shoplift because they can't afford to buy the food.
Yeah.
That's what they think, which is absolute cobblers, by the way. Coming up, we've got Emma Kenny to speak to about dogs in a minute, because the BBC, I don't know if you saw it, put out this ludicrous video yesterday, basically saying that, dogs, there's too many dogs in Britain and we should probably get rid of some of them. But first...
Who said that?
It was a report on BBC TV.
Yeah, but who would actually say?
Well, they're claiming that there's people who have got an extreme fear of dogs. We know what it's actually about.
Oh,
it's
I see. The Muslim issue.
The Muslim issue, right? Yeah. But they won't say that.
Okay.
But we've got, is it Charlotte by name? Is it our Charlotte? Or did we say a different Charlotte? It's our Charlotte who's got a phone call. She's checked in on the phone to see if it works. Charlotte, very good morning to you.
It's your Charlotte. Good morning, Mike and Kelvin.
Hi there. Hi, Charlotte.
Hello, Charlotte.
It's working.
Listen, so you're the first caller to the Mike Graham show. Well done.
Well, I thought I'd better check and make sure the show goes without a hiccup.
How easy was it to do?
Just click on the link, type your name in, and here I am.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. And so people on Substack who are paid subscribers can make the call, can they?
Yes, that's how I did it. So I've just directed a few who didn't know how to do it, so it's quite easy.
Excellent.
There's a post on Substack under the title Newsflash.
Yes.
and yeah, give it a go.
The quality is quite good. Yeah, so give it a go. You know, as I say, we won't have, you know, unlike some larger organisations who are able to filter the calls, we won't be able to do that. So we'd ask you not to be irresponsible, because obviously if you do anything stupid, then from ever ringing us again, and it might interfere with our ability to broadcast. So please don't do that. But I'll tell you what. Speaking of Zak Polansky and the Green Party, should we have a look at this amazing video that he made yesterday? This is him being interviewed about his teeth.
His teeth.
His teeth. Yeah, check this out.
Talk about my teeth or my appearance or whatever it might be, anything, but actually talk about the policies that we're putting forward. I really love my smile, and. So here's annoying, I haven't said this on screen before, so here's an exclusive. I have never lost a tooth, not that it would matter if I did. I had a
These are your original teeth?
Exactly, and I had a baby tooth that was in one of the gaps that fell out a couple of years ago.
Right.
But I can't put an implant in because the real tooth, the adult tooth, is still waiting to come through. And what's really annoying is one day when it comes through, I'm going to have to make a big point to everyone that it was natural, and I haven't done it because I was bullied into doing it. I've got my incredible boyfriend, Richie, who it probably bothers him a little bit more than it bothers me, because I signed up to some of this, or well, all of it. I didn't sign up to personal abuse, but I certainly signed up to political criticism and kind of the back and forth of that.
You understood it would happen. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think this is because of your views on immigration, on trans rights, some of the things you said about poverty and racism, is that you're woke. Are you woke?
Yeah, very much so.
Is that, do you consider that an insult or not?
No, not the slightest. Right. I think we need to go back to the meaning of the word, which is awake to injustice.
One of the things I've seen said about you quite a bit is that you are the Farage of the left. Is that, you laugh, but is that fair? Is that right? Do you agree
no,
with that?
I don't think it's right. In fact, I don't think it could be more wrong. Nigel Farage's politics are complete opposite to my politics and to the Green Party. I think what's accurate, to be fair, which is why the comparison is sometimes made, is he was very good at cutting through. Every time I get some of this kickback, particularly from some of the more right-wing papers, all that tells me in the party is actually we found the vulnerable point, we're correct, and they know it's.
So that's Zak Polansky, who thinks it's important to give an interview about his teeth.
Yeah, his other point really there was that he's rather surprised at the personal abuse he receives, and also even more surprised at the abuse he receives from, quotes, the right-wing media, unquote, about his policies. Well, since his policies seem to be open borders, and the kind of people that he appeals to is probably youngsters.
Yeah.
So with the 16-year-olds coming in at the next election, I can see him doing remarkably well. Now the next question is it going to be enough to derail Labour completely, or is it going to be enough actually to allow a reform Tory administration to get to power? I suspect the latter. The Greens are very, very good news, actually.
Well, here's what I can tell you. Certainly in the London elections coming up in May, the word is that Greens are going to sweep the board. Right? And according to a projected seat change that I looked at, and this is for the country-wide, right? Yeah. Reform plus 2,260, Greens plus 450, Lib Dems plus 200, Conservatives down 1,010, Labour down 1,900, and that's basically been projected as the end of the two-party system.
It is the end of the two-party system. It's end. Now here's a very sad moment. It's end of Mayor Khan.
You mean Lord Khan?
Oh, Lord Khan, who finally becomes a voice that we don't need to take any bloody notice of. Right.
Well, that would be nice.
So that's good news. The next question, though, is who is the mayor? Who is the mayor of London? Yeah. That's where the beating heart of power lies.
Yeah.
And
well, maybe it's Zak Polansky.
It could be.
You know?
It could be.
Because the interesting thing, though, is the other story that's kind of bubbling under, and I haven't been able to nail this one down yet, but there's a couple of things being said on Twitter, that there's a massive disagreement going on currently inside of the Green Party, because after what happened at the weekend, I don't know if you saw the dancing on the stage with the bondage guys and, you know, all the kind of, it looked like something out of the Pride weekend, the old Compton Street, right? Apparently there's a row going on because some of those LGBT types want to have a bondage event, right, to raise money for the party. And obviously...
To raise money for whips.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Who wants to be chief whip? Oh, mate, please, you know.
That would be the whole of the party.
Yeah.
The Chief Whip Party.
Yeah. It was like once when, you might remember some of these characters in New York. When I first went there, they told me there was a guy called Ivor Key.
Oh, yeah.
Brian Vine. You might remember, right? George Gordon.
Yeah.
All very fine, upstanding members of Her Majesty's Press. They all decided to pop down to Christopher Street one day because they wanted to see what this phenomenon of the gay village was all about, right? The West Village. So they went down to this gay bar and they let them in. And as they were coming out, having spent quite a few quid in their drinking, the guy on the door said, "Gentlemen," he said, "we're very, very happy that you came to see us. Very happy for you to come back. But please, next time, would you wear leather or chaps if you want to be let in again?" You know, because these were the things. These were these leather trousers with no arse in them.
Yeah.
Anyway, so apparently the Islamists in the Green Party, though, are not happy about this bondage event, right? And they're not happy about this whole kind of, sexual
what they like about gays is throwing them off buildings.
Yeah.
Right?
Because they could have a joint event.
Yeah. So that's right. You turn up wearing. That's it. You start off wearing the leather gear,
leathers, right?
And then boom, over the top you go. No, but it's serious. How can you possibly have a party which at one side is appealing to gays, and at the other side is appealing to the Muslims? So in the end, the Muslim community are not stupid. They are off. They will either go to Labour, won't vote, or much more likely are going to vote for anybody whose name is Mohammed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that kind of two different cheeks of the same backside, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
That can't coexist for long, can it?
Correct.
And the more powerful they become, the less easy it is to run.
However, if you're a stupid 16-year-old, including, by the way, what is unbelievable is that those people involved in that M&S mob riot, right? Because that's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay. There were no cops there. They would have trashed that place and stolen everything they could get their hands on. Those kinds of half-wits are exactly the kind of people who will be quite taken by, people dancing on the stage and not understanding the dichotomy of Muslim one side or Islam one side and gay on the other, right? And they don't care. It looked like fun. I'm stupid. Actually, I enjoy robbing stores for a living, right? So therefore, I'm going to vote Green.
Yeah, I know. It's a very bizarre.
And the other aspect is, and of course, this is something which even Reform faces, that everybody says, well, what happens when they get to power? If the Greens got to power, this country would be completely at an end.
Finished,
It would be finished from that moment.
Well, this is my worry about London, because if they do become quite a powerful force inside of the London Assembly, whether or not they get enough power to become, able to lead it with a mayoral candidate in a couple of years' time, they could make some serious changes. Imagine what they'd say about drivers and ULEZ charges and fines and all the rest of it.
What about if
pedestrianised areas and all that?
Correct. And what about if you had a house there? Right? If you had a house which was, say, worth 3 or 4 million quid, well, could there be some council tax which actually quadruples it by 20, and they just say, actually, we don't care, So these are things which 16-year-olds are not thinking about. And actually, there's no way of persuading them to think about them.
Well, do you know why? Because they see their maybe older brothers and sisters, 20, 24 years of age, going, well, we can't afford to buy a house. So they hate you if you have a house, because as far as they're concerned, you've got something they can never have.
Everybody couldn't afford to have a house. My first house, I couldn't afford to buy a house in London.
No.
I rented a flat in Deptford. Actually, I bought a house in Crayford. Right? Well, honestly, best will in the world, even 1,000 years later, Crayford is not the number one place to buy a house.
No.
But why did you buy a house in Crayford? Because it was cheap.
Yeah, right.
It was cheap, and I could afford it.
And also, I've got a similar kind of tale to tell that, it's not a natural necessarily, because growing up in the 70s and 80s, buying a house wasn't always a passport to luxury, because so many people lost houses. They lost money. I bought a flat in Manhattan in 1989, paid $250,000 for it. It was a co-op. In 1991, I couldn't sell it for 120, and I had to give the keys back to the landlord. And back to the mortgage company, by the way, and so I lost all my money. And it's now worth $1.5 million.
Correct.
But I couldn't afford to keep it going because I'd moved back to London to work for the Daily Express, funnily enough. And the next house I bought was a house in Wiltshire for £70,000, which I managed to bump up to. I made 70,000 on that, bought another house, then got divorced, gave the house to my wife, ex-wife, you know, gave the money to her, started again, bought another house in Scotland, had to give that one away. You know, it's a story of you know, property isn't always the answer.
What is that old Tommy Docherty gag? He said that the point about, he said, I'm not sure why people get married. He said, wouldn't it be easier just to buy a house and give it to somebody you don't like?
That's right. It was a Henny Youngman joke, actually, from Goodfellas, yeah. Right. Yeah, I was going to go find a woman I don't like and buy her a house. But yeah, I mean, literally extraordinary. Anyway, now let's talk about dogs, because this is the video I want you to watch, Kelvin. This is the BBC put this out, right? Now, there can only be one reason why they're doing this. Have a look.
Are we all becoming too dog friendly? From coffee shops, restaurants and retailers like Kier, Zara and John Lewis, dog friendly spaces are becoming easy to come by. There are 13.5 million pet dogs in the UK, and 36% of households own at least one dog. But people who are allergic to dogs or afraid of them say that the rise of these dog friendly spaces is a concern. One woman with the extreme fear of dogs told the BBC that she feels trapped and only goes out on special occasions due to the lack of dog-free zones. She's one of the many seeking support in online groups who offer advice on how to avoid them. But a coffee shop owner whose brand is underpinned by the dogs says that they're part of the family. What do you think? Has it all gone a bit too far?
Has it all gone a bit too far?
Good Lord.
I mean, what a ludicrous thing to put out in Britain, right? The country where I think he said there's at least 50 or 35... 13.5 million. 13.5 million dogs, and something like 36% of families have dogs. We do a thing called... We're going to speak to Emma Kenny about this in a second, as soon as we can get hold of her. But have a look at this, because this is a gift that was sent in by Alistair McLeod, who's actually in Australia, right? He sent this in because he wanted a bumper sticker, but he said, and he's made a bit of a joke about the fact that he can't hear very well. He said, delighted to see that you've started up on your own, having left the Rupert Murdoch radio station. He said, now I know that you like a heron, but he's pronounced it herring, right? So he actually sent us a herring. Now there's one picture that you can show us, and this is going to be Pooch's Pooch. Can you show the picture of the herring first? Oh, you showed the wrong. No, you've killed it. You've done it the wrong way round. Anyway, never mind. There you go. We got the herring first on the left, and then Ziggy loves the herring. That's my dog Ziggy. He looks a bit like your old dog, doesn't he?
Yes, well, I had a load of them. What I don't understand, was that shown on mainstream television?
I believe it was just online.
Yeah, but even so...
But it might have shown on the BBC, probably on the BBC News channel.
Yeah.
You know.
So what... so they carefully skirted round the issue of people who don't like dogs.
Yes.
Right, which is basically, there's an entire, a substantial religious minority in our country called followers of Islam.
Yeah.
Who have, because they think they're unclean in some way.
They do.
Actually seen some people out there. I would have thought the reverse was true. The dogs are fine, it's the people that are unclean.
Right.
But with everything, everything that we do, there's always a counterweight to it. The dogs give a lot of pleasure to a lot of people.
They do.
And I too have noticed that there's all kinds of pubs and cafes and the like that allow the dogs in. Yeah. I don't see anything wrong with that. But mind you, I've had dogs one way and another for decades. So perhaps I'm the wrong person.
Well, yeah, but you are far more likely to be like a regular person in Britain. Even if you don't have a dog in Britain, most people are quite fond of dogs. It's a dog-loving country. Yeah. Crufts is one of the biggest shows that the BBC puts on. People like watching it. Yeah. You know. Emma Kenny is going to join us now. She is, of course, a woman after our own hearts. Not only does she love dogs, she's a media psychologist, psychotherapist, YouTube true crime creator. Emma, great to see you. I loved your tweet that you put out yesterday. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show, by the way. I don't know if you know Kelvin McKenzie, but he's over here.
Yeah, I know who he is. Hello, lovely.
She basically says, I wish people would generally F off a great deal more. I've got 3 dogs. If you don't like dogs, then avoid the countryside and stay away from dog owners' homes. I mean, this is ridiculous from the BBC, isn't it?
Oh, it's bizarre. Are they going to ban squirrels and rabbits and birds next? At the end of the day, dogs are part of our British culture. Also, for stress release, for exercise, for community, they are amazing. And I just feel that these sentient creatures are now being looked at in a disparaging way. And I do really mean what I said on X. I genuinely feel people should F off if they cannot manage the fact that other people have that kind of aspiration to have relationships with animals in their heart. I don't get it.
No, but also, since when did we run the world, or Britain, on the basis of somebody who's got some completely irrational fear of something? You know, my view of somebody who's got an irrational fear of dogs and doesn't like going out is we'll put them in a padded cell then, and they can spend the rest of their lives on their own, staring at the walls.
I mean, I think if you have a phobia, the only thing that you need to do is get over the phobia. And Ricky Gervais did it very well on that advert. Absolutely.
there it is.
When it comes down to it, phobias are things that need to be dealt with, aren't they? The last thing that I would do if somebody was saying to me, I am absolutely terrified. And somebody said this actually in a response to me yesterday. They were like, you know, I'm very terrified of dogs, or my child got bitten by a dog. And it's like, yes. So do you think as a parent, your job is therefore to keep them away from the world? Or do you think your job is to actually help them get over that irrational fear? Because yes, in that moment, it's rational. The dog bit me. But then all the other millions of dogs are not going to do that. So help them to come to terms with it. It bothers me greatly that we are more and more living in this world where the government has decided they're going to tell us what we're allowed to think. We've got the media telling us what we're allowed to think. As you know, I mean, you're a recipient of that yourself. And it's problematic on every level, because we are raising people now who do not have resilience, who do not understand that it's okay for people to say things you don't like. That's the way the world is. And also that don't take things too personally and move forward even if you have disagreements, whether that's with somebody having a dog, whether that's with somebody having different political views. The reality is, to live together peacefully, we have to accept that we all have differences of opinion, differences of lifestyle, and we have to celebrate that, as opposed to try to clamp down on one another's lifestyle. It's ridiculous.
I know, and to kind of, you know, nanny state everyone to the point where you're not allowed to do certain things. You know, next they'll be telling you that you can't. I mean, they've already started with this conversation about, you know, because we're going to run out of fuel, maybe you shouldn't drive every day. And maybe we'll look at your number plate and go, oh, you've got a T in it, so you can't go out on a Tuesday. They love that, don't they?
Absolutely. I was actually sitting there earlier on this morning, just kind of thinking in that space that I have, because I've got quite a lot of children, I've got a lot of animals. So I have like pauses when I get up early, and I was just sitting there and I was thinking, how have we arrived in this position? How have we arrived in a position where people have been so happy, and it has been a lot of people who've been happy, to just hand over decision making to the government, believing that they're the trusted party, when all our evidence, particularly over the last 10 years, has demonstrated not only are they untrustworthy, they are dangerous to our well-being. And more, all I see is radical ideas, not good ideas, radical ideas. And I genuinely have a fear for what's happening next. Like, I would never have imagined having two small girls now compared to my boys who are big. I would never have imagined that I wouldn't have sent them to school. I would never have thought for a moment that I would have kept my children at home, schooled them. It just would have felt outlandish to do that. I am going to 100% keep them away from the system fully. I'm not letting them anywhere near it. And that's not against the teachers in schools. It's just to do with the fact that more and more I don't see it as education. I see it as forced ideology, and I'm not going to allow my children in there. So even for myself in the last 20 years, the changes have been so monumental that I've arrived at that position. So absolutely, you're right. We live in a nanny state. We wrap people in cotton wool that isn't cotton wool. It's like fiberglass, if you're really honest about it. We don't teach you how to manage your emotions. And ultimately, look at our society now. It is just one of the most scary times I think the UK has ever seen. And that's something that either has to change, or the trajectory is not a positive one.
No, I agree.
Can I just raise one issue, though? I mean, I've had dogs all my life, so I am a massive fan of dogs. But how do you feel about the owners of ex-bullies and those kinds of dogs? Literally, if I saw one of those coming down the street, I know what the argument is. It's not the dog that's wrong. It's the owner and all the rest of it. But these dogs have killed people. What should we be doing about that? Should we actually be... Go on.
I think there's a problem if you already have ex-bullies, like the idea, for example, of euthanizing them because you got a dog that's now not necessarily seen as an appropriate dog to have. I think that would be a major problem. Do I think that dogs like that should be absolutely kept on leashes just because of the fact that there is more of an inclination, for example, where smaller dogs are concerned, like it or otherwise, dogs still have that hunting DNA. You know, there are wolves in their DNA. So I genuinely feel that you shouldn't be leaving children alone with those dogs. You should absolutely bring them up beautifully, as you've just suggested. Owners certainly have an impact, but some dogs irrespective of how wonderful they are on the whole, have more of a propensity. Don't get me wrong, golden retrievers are more likely to cause issues because of the fact they're one of the most popular dogs and occasionally they will bite. So statistically, you'll have a lesser dog in that respect being the problem. But certainly when they are that big, when they are that strong, I do think it takes a particular type of owner to actually have them. I think maybe they need to think about how they apply certain lessons and discipline, maybe as a statutory framework, so that if you have one of those animals, you actually have to bring them up in a very positive way. But I would personally never have one of those dogs because they are so strong, and also I would never have them around kids because children can be deeply problematic with animals. You know, my own kids with my 3 dogs, they will drag them around, and yes, they're not biters, but it just takes one moment and one instinctual response, and that can be death for a child, for example, with an animal of that size. So I do understand why you think they're problematic.
Yeah, but I was going to say, aside from the dog argument, you tweeted out the other day, as I did, about the amazing statistic that was in the Sunday Times at the weekend, that something like 240 out of 280 Labour MPs have all come from a background which has nothing to do with business, nothing to do with the private sector.
Well, actually, you could. Do you know what?
They're all in charities. They're all in sort of voluntary organisations, political lobbying companies, and all of that.
Comms. Right? The reality is that if you are a Labour, you've got a Labour panel.
Yeah.
The idea that you turn up there and you say, well, actually, I'm running rather a successful engineering business. I employ 387 people, and I started it 18 years ago, taking out a loan against my house, right, in order to make it work. Your chances of actually becoming an MP are zilch, as they turn around and say, oh, really? You're a capitalist, are you?
Yeah.
You're in favour of wealth creation. What we want somebody who knows how to rattle a can, right, outside the station somewhere. By the way, I put in for those cans, by the way, so I'm an idiot, right? They rattle a can. They don't know how to make the can and never put any of their own money in, and yet they are considered to be the kind of people who are going to run our country. There are 72 Labour MPs who come out of the charity sector. Oh my God.
Yeah.
What we don't want is more people giving away our hard-earned taxes. They look upon money as other people's stuff. Oh, yes, you can have some. Somebody knocks on the door. Oh, you can have some. Oh, you've got a hard story to tell. You'd have some, right? We don't want those people. What we want is people who say, yeah, that's a pretty good story. Unfortunately, we haven't actually got any money. But look, try us in a couple of years' time when we're not the poorest nation in Europe, or one of them anyway.
Absolutely. It is extraordinary.
It's available as a podcast, that.
Yeah, it is extraordinary. It's extraordinary how we've reached this point, though, because we've kind of allowed it to happen, in my view, because, we've had the Tories who were not particularly good at running the country. In fact, they were so bad at running the country that we let these other idiots in who are completely wrecking it, to the point where, so many people I talk to now are actively considering leaving.
Correct.
Actually leaving the country. Because if you have got the ability to make money, you don't want to make it here anymore.
Well, next door to me, he's going to live in Spain, which is unbelievable, but they have some inheritance tax issue. So the children are all in favour of him going to Spain, right, so they can get their hands on there with lolly.
Right.
And round the corner, successful guy, he changed direction with his tech business to cyber security, which is the great big money earner at the moment, cyber security. He's off to the Isle of Man because he's just about to flog his company and doesn't want to give 45% or 40% or 28%, whatever the capital gains was in this particular case, to this Labour government.
Right.
So
But they will make out that
he came round the other day and gave me a bottle of champagne. I said, you'll have to leave more often.
Exactly right. But I mean, the Labour government will characterise that individual as a crook, as somebody who doesn't feel responsible for his, they'll call him a tax avoider. Why should he give him 40% of what he's made? It's ridiculous.
Correct.
Yeah, also, when you think about Italy have got some really positive things for people who've got great wealth. You pay a standard fee. It was 200,000. It might have gone up to 300,000 now. But the point is, if you're earning millions of pounds, that's obviously going to be very positive for you. And also, you are celebrated. I think one of the big problems that we've got in the UK is there is now this mantra of hate the billionaires.
Yeah.
Now, I personally would have loved to have been born a billionaire. Life would have been a lot easier, let me tell you.
Yeah.
But with respect to that idea, we all know that billionaires can move. They're mobile. They might want want to stay in the UK, but they'll make choices based on what's going to be effective for their future. And when they leave, obviously the tax burden hits the middle classes, those individuals who are just going out every day to work. I think also people don't really understand small business. I think that's a really big problem, because our small businesses, yes, you might have a director, and that sounds very fancy, taking 50,000 in dividends, but actually after that they're hit horrendously. So they're not living on big wages at all, they're just getting by. And then what happens is they get come for even further. And like you say, the reality is we've run out of money. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to raise the amount we give to benefits. We're going to change the 2-child cap. We're going to increase the benefits for the MPs to some degree by raising their wage. Where's that coming from? Well, again, it's coming from the small business owners. It's coming from the very working middle classes. It's making everyone poorer. And the problem with that is that the actual general mood in the UK is becoming more and more negative and blameful. Because when you are in a situation where you are struggling, and you might have a neighbour who genuinely is struggling themselves on benefits, you are going to see still that your struggle feels bigger because you're going to work every day, and that causes division in itself. So the psychology of our country right now is on the floor. I think we have absolute sense of almost dysmorphia patriotically. We are ashamed to be who we are as a nation, and that's going to change. I was always proud growing up in this country. I felt it was the most inclusive. I think up until about 2006, we genuinely were dealing with low racism, low homophobia, mass inclusion. And in the last 20 years, because there's been such a lack of understanding about what the Indigenous population require and desire, we have got to a point now where we've become global apologists, and it's done everything to counter what we should be working towards. And I agree, we should have people in government who ran massive companies. It has to be from the head down for things to succeed. And I 100% agree. I want somebody who knows to look at something, to consider themselves an expert in change management, for example, within that corporate sector, and to be able to say, if we want to feed Peter this, we have to make sure that Paul is paying that, but everybody is getting a sense of fairness, equality, and hope. And that is something we have desperately lost. It's horrendous.
Totally. Very well said, Emma. Thank you so much. We'll have to get you back on. Well done.
Thanks for having me. It's lovely seeing you.
No, it's fantastic to finally. Yeah, no, great to finally get you on. No, we'll definitely get doing this more often. Thank you very much indeed, Emma Kenny. Wonderful woman. Speaks an awful lot of common sense.
Yeah.
How about this? Right, we've got the old 38,000 bananas poll going at the moment. My cat is voting for Islam. Soap suds, yeah. I can see the cat vote. Oh, they're obviously going for the cat vote, aren't they?
We've got the cat vote.
38,000 bananas have been delivered to Orkney by mistake. It was obviously some government-run organisation that have done this. And we've got several choices for you. What was Britain's biggest mistake? Electing Kier Starmer, funding Prince Andrew, Brexit, or hiring sex offenders at the BBC? Amazingly, most of you think electing Kier Starmer is probably the worst thing we've ever done. I think that's right. Now, I've got something else for you, Kelvin, because we've been doing a lot of interaction with the audience. Yeah. And we asked yesterday as well, and we've got a story this morning that we haven't really talked about much, but Starmer threatening the junior doctors, right? Yeah. Telling them, if you don't call off this strike at Easter, which basically will mean they don't work for about 2 weeks, I'm going to pull all the jobs that you wanted to get, which seems to be the cutting off the nose to spite their face. But again, I asked people yesterday to tell us their stories of what their experiences are with the NHS, and doctors in particular, right? GPs. Yeah. Because, you know, the story yesterday was, if you go to the GP now, he's being told by the government, don't refer people to hospital because we're going to cut back on the waiting list, right?
Well, so because otherwise they're not going to hit their targets.
Yeah, so you know how we're being told that you can't get a doctor's appointment? Yeah. Listen to this, right? Steve says this: every time I go into my GP surgery, it's empty or almost empty. The other day, I had to go to a different practice for a physio appointment. This practice was huge, modern, with 2 large waiting rooms and completely empty on a Friday morning at 8:30 a.m. Yeah. Before COVID, my GP surgery used to be packed out every morning. They are basically not seeing patients. You can't tell me all the appointments are online. Then here's one from Patricia. She says, I remember when the surgery used to be heaving with people. I remember my GP doing home visits and he would be straight out knocking on my door. It's all very different now. Sonia says, my doctor used to ask how different members of my family were by name. He came out in the middle of the night to my children, always with a smile, and the surgery was always packed. Now, I rarely see one doctor. The surgery says it's busy, but it's always empty. It's like the lockdown was planned to reduce the service we pay for all of our working life. I mean, that's the reality of doctors' surgeries now. People who tell me that they go, there's never anyone there.
Yeah, well, there's certainly around my way that has been the case. It used to be basically, it used to look like Waterloo at around about 20 to 5. Yes. You know, so it's very, very busy. Not so now. Now, there are a number of reasons for this, and one of them is the ability now of at my surgery, you have to actually type in what's wrong with you in the morning.
Right.
And
Well, if you don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah, no.
I mean, you're
no,
the
but the funny
doctor,
funny thing is that actually your access to what's wrong with you is probably quite similar to the doctors, because most people go on Google. Go on Google and find that their right leg has now officially dropped off.
No, people tell me that you're sitting in front of a doctor, right? And he's on his computer Googling what you might have wrong with you.
I know.
Right?
I know. But actually, the difference is that they can write you some cream or some antibiotics which can cure, whereas you can't. So my next question is whether actually that we are coming to the moment where we actually do away with the ability of doctors to actually write you the prescription.
I mean, we go back to AI.
You can start writing your own.
Well, you go back to AI. And you can have an AI doctor, right? No waiting time, always available. All they got to do is click a box.
Okay, so here's the rub. I think, so we're going to end up with more video doctors.
Yeah.
And if the price comes down a bit more, it will be much cheaper for you personally to have a video doctor than it is to pay the taxes to pay for a GP that has been through that service.
Yeah. Well, you know they say 25% of your income tax goes to the NHS, right? The NHS still hungry for more money, still wants more and more of your money, more and more of your taxes. We've got a junior doctor strike coming up, which will cost us another couple of $100 million. And no doubt people won't get the operations they were hoping to get. Oh, how about this? I'm your personal AI doctor, Doctronic.
Okay, well,
my service is fast and free. After we chat, if you want to have a video visit with the top doctor, only $39. Wow.
Right, so
I'd be a bit worried about that. How do you know it's not some bloke scamming you?
So perhaps the idea is to actually start firing the doctors.
Yeah.
Don't say we're not developing more jobs, because honestly, when the negotiators hear that, they go, right. So I'd like the idea that they're trying to be punchy. I do enjoy that, okay?
They shouldn't be striking. They shouldn't be allowed to strike.
They should not be allowed to strike any more than a police officer can strike, or a prison officer. I totally agree, and that should just be the rule. Certainly won't get that under Labour.
Yeah.
But actually, strangely, with reform now, I don't know whether you've noticed, with reform, they're becoming much more what I would describe as political.
Yeah.
And are actually trying not to have rows. I think they're wrong to do that, but that's by the by. So, okay, so we start firing the doctors and saying, the truth about the matter is we don't need you, in the same way that tech has done what it's done to every other business.
Yeah.
It's actually seeing you out the door.
Yeah.
Now, if you're at the top end, you can do something to my leg.
Yeah.
You can either cut it off or do something.
Yeah.
Right? Perhaps their money should go that way.
Yeah.
But the bog standard guys, who are basically these people, actually, thanks very much. It's been a pleasure. We're just going to have to see how we get on without you.
Absolutely right. And so many of them now, and we used to talk regularly to a guy when I was on talk up in Doncaster. In fact, we should try and get him on.
Yeah.
He was a GP, and he said, I do only 3 days a week as a GP, because I spend another day sort of training, and I spend another day doing outside work, which means doing vaccinations and all the rest of it. So half of the doctors, partly because it's not worth them making any more money because they get taxed too much, their pension's not worth it. Most of them only work a 3-day week anyway. So you wouldn't miss a lot of them, to be honest. My favourite story about this was back in COVID days, when somebody sent me a picture of doctor's surgery. It was in Rugby, and there was a sign on the front door which said, "Please do not enter if you are ill." Because they didn't want to spread the disease. Anyway, let's talk to Sunil Sharma, who's here, a host of Rational Voices, a podcast. We've had that one. My cat's voted for Islam. Sunil, good to see you, man. I missed you. You've been away.
Yeah, nice to see you too, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, very well indeed. Very well indeed. Now, I've got a couple of things to talk to you about. I'll ask you about the junior doctors in a minute, but I'm hearing this morning that the French are kicking off again. Because, as you probably know, the brilliant deal that we've had to give the French 375 million quid to stop the migrant boats coming over. Apparently, they're refusing to agree to a new deal on the grounds that Shabana Mahmoud wants to actually limit the number of boats that are allowed out of France. And the French say, "Oh no, we can't possibly agree to that." So it's going to be another absolute shit show, if you'll pardon the expression.
Yeah. No, I mean, the issue is whether you're France or anyone else across the globe, who's going to take this Labour government serious? I think this is such a weak, ineffective government where I think leaders across the world will sense that. I think if you get a negotiation room with Robert Shaban Mahmood, Kier Starmer, Ed Miliband, these guys have never really achieved anything outside of their political careers. They've never had really serious jobs that have had effectively done serious change, or they've had to negotiate, or they've had to make these decisions, whether it be in boardrooms, in person. So I think if you are France or anyone else across the world, this is a great opportunity to take advantage of, unfortunately, our country. I mean, the boats issue, I just don't see it being solved under this government. The rhetoric's not strong enough. There's a really good example, regardless of what people think of Trump, in terms of when he came into power from Joe Biden, and the people that crossed the border dropped by more than 100%. It was an astronomical number that dropped from January 2020 to February 2020, just on the basis of that Trump was coming into power. So at that point, nothing had changed. The borders hadn't changed. He had to put no policy in power. But just the sheer rhetoric of what he was saying in terms of no one can cross this country illegally, that there'll be serious ramifications, the way he was speaking, it deterred people so aggressively that they were like, they're not even going to take the risk, even though at that point no punishment had actually changed. And I think that sums up the difference when you have strong leadership when it comes to the border, and the UK are desperately in need of that.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, forgive me, I got it wrong. It says actually a £475 million deal that we gave them, and for which we got nothing in return, really, did we?
Well, we got a load of migrants.
I mean, I think they misunderstood the deal. Yeah. We'll give you £475 million.
You give us
you send us
70,000.
Yeah,
70,000.
I mean, that's what happened, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's embarrassing, and I think on a broader sense, when it comes to mass migration, I don't think Labour know what they're doing. I think it's dangerous, and I'm starting to believe that they actually want the numbers to increase. I just don't see how any logical government is doing what they're doing unless they actually want the numbers to increase. Maybe at some point that will help them get more votes come next election, because I don't see any British people voting for them. So I think it's really scary and dangerous times. They've not solved this issue of mass migration. They're not even, it doesn't even feel like they're even interested in really solving it, which I think right now is probably the big issue for the next 5 to 10 years.
And they don't like talking about it. Let's have a look, actually. We've got one more clip of Starmer, haven't we, Pooch? This was him. After he launched the so-called local election campaign, he was asked about how terrible the result was going to be for him. Have a look at this. He almost loses it, but then changes his mind and decides to be quite friendly. Have a look.
You're languishing in the polls. Are you looking down the barrel of a bloodbath? How bad will the results be in early May?
Well, you've seen the energy in the room here. Our candidates, our members are really geared up for this. And we're going to go out there and fight for every vote. We know we need to earn every vote. We go into the battle in good spirits, but of course the backdrop is a war on two fronts. And so people will be looking at Labour for leadership and being absolutely clear that we're not getting dragged into that war. We will, of course, defend ourselves and our allies, and that we do know that the cost of living is the issue that people worry about most. So we go in good spirits, we go in against an uncertain backdrop globally, but I think that if we can show our values, our positivity, what we have done and what we will do, then, as I say, no vote is being cast, just every vote is there to be earned, and we need to go out and earn it.
Can I just say about that?
Yeah.
That this must be the most bizarre launch I have ever witnessed, in which the basis of it was a cost of living battle.
Yeah.
Right? He knows that we're already on the march upwards. It's going to be, say, 4% in quite high. Why on earth would you focus on cost of living when you knew full well that come April, your water bill was going up, your council tax bill was going up, your mobile phone bills are going up? Right, the average number, and I got this, by the way, courtesy of The Guardian, so I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
It's going to be about 239 quid. If nothing else changes, that's not your food, not your restaurant, not going for a beer, nothing, right? Why on earth would you, if you were the Labour Party, want to make one of your battlegrounds cost of living? I find it utterly bizarre.
Is it because it's the only place they can go? Because what he can say is that it's not our fault, it's the fault of the Iran war, and we can't control the cost of energy, and that's what's...
Well, I was saying, what about council tax and the like?
Well, of course. I mean, listen, I'm not defending them. I'm not defending them, but what I'm saying is they can't go anywhere else, can they, Sunil? Because there's nothing they can crow about. There's nothing that Kier Starmer can say. I mean, the only thing you ever hear from him, I'm surprised he didn't say it, breakfast clubs. We've got some breakfast clubs. You know, I mean, it's ludicrous, isn't it? They've done literally nothing that they can boast about.
100%. And I think the thing about cost of living, I think, of course, I don't think anyone would be happy about it, but some people could stomach some of it if they saw signs of growth, or they saw a plan, or they saw a long-term strategy where, you know, there's a long-term plan here where we are going to suffer a little bit, but there is clearly a strategy where, you know, we're going to grow as a country, we're going to lower taxes, we're going to make life easier for people. There's a clear plan of growth, but instead, I think what the real concern is with this cost of living crisis is that there is no signs. There is absolutely no signs that this is going to change. There's no hope. There's no feeling that things could potentially change. And forget about feelings. There's no facts behind it either. We're not seeing businesses being created in the UK. We're just seeing businesses leave. You know, you guys were talking earlier about people leaving the country. We're seeing wealthy people leave this country, people who create businesses, people who create jobs. So how on earth, you know, what's the next changes coming up for Kier Starmer? We can keep talking about the cost of living crisis, and I think some of that is maybe he can still blame the previous government on. But that said, where is the hope? Where's the future under Kier Starmer for the average Brit in Britain? Yeah. I don't feel anything from anyone I speak to, regardless of where they're living, that anyone really feels any of that from him. So I think that for me is the really serious concern. There is no strategy for growth in the United Kingdom under his leadership, and that is frightening.
It really isn't. And are you one of those who thinks that come May the 8th, when Labour government lose what looks like around about 2,000 seats in the councils, does he go? Do you think he goes?
I think sooner or later he goes. I don't know if it's particularly May, but I think definitely before the next election. I'm sure before the next election he won't be the leader of the Labour Party. And again, when we talk about him leaving, I mean, one of the reasons there's nothing exciting about that is who replaces him. You look at that cabinet, that's a cabinet with zero business experience. And I don't think anyone really there strikes of any serious change that's going to happen. Maybe there's a bit of reputational improvement overseas, but I struggle to even see that. So the concerning thing is I don't think there's anyone really, I look within that cabinet as a viable alternative, or that's going to make serious change, or that's going to really change any of the patterns that's going on now. So I think regardless of who the next, whether it's him or a different Labour leader, I don't see Labour being power in the next election. And more worrying than that, what's going to happen for the next few years to Britain? You know, are they going to damage this country so much that it's going to take such a long period for it to revive? And I think that's the bigger concern for me. Ideally, after the May elections, we have a new election in general. We have an actual proper general election, because this surely can't go on. If any of them actually cared about their country like they say they do, that would be the right thing to do, because it's an embarrassment. They're a joke across the world, and I think this feeling of what they've done in such a short space of time is incredible.
It really is. Sunil Sharma, great to see you.
Can I just say that is such a good point. And I think the point about whether they spend the next 3 years actually going in for policy, which I believe in, they will know once they've seen this May 6th result that they're done for in that 3 years. And that they will then, that the socialists will then go for slash and burn. And not only will they go for slash and burn, they will go for slash and burn with a left-wing perspective. Right. They're going to move, I know it's incredible for your viewers actually, they're going to move further left. And what will that really mean? So I have some good news. At the end of that time, the British people are not stupid. They are not going to vote left, either Green, Labour, or, by the way, watch Lib Dem in a desperate attempt to keep themselves relevant, they think, right, by going left. They are not going to do that. They are going to give, I think, Reform an enormous number, by the way, an enormous number. And actually, I think they'll give the rest of it to the Tories.
Yeah, I think that may well be right. But, I mean, you know, it will look ridiculous, won't it, when Liam Byrne looks like he actually only spent all the money in the Treasury. They'll have spent not only all the money in the Treasury, but all the money that was going to come into the Treasury in the next 10 years. There's not any money left.
Next time they're going to send the money's all gone. And by the way, here's a bunch of unpaid invoices.
Yeah, right. It's a bit like that at Talk Sport once, I remember. But that's another story. Sunil, very good. Thank you. Good to see you. Thanks very much indeed. The election of Starmer is still topping our poll today. 38,000 bananas delivered to Orkney by mistake. My actual idea for a poll was what should we do with the 38,000 bananas? But I was overruled, and so this is the rule. Electing Kier Starmer, 92% of you think that was the worst mistake Britain has ever made. I think you may be right. Funding Prince Andrew, 2%. Brexit, 1%. Hiring sex offenders at the BBC, 5%. We still wait to see. I wonder if there'll be any developments in that Scott Mills story today. Well, I think there will be, because, I mean, you, as an old tabloid editor, if you were sitting there, you'd be going, I need another story on this. I need to know what's going on. I need to get to the bottom of this story. Can you please put as many people on the team on it as you possibly can, and let's hear it.
Yes. Look, first of all, the whole point about running the Sun is it's got nothing to do with the editor at all. Yeah. He is sitting there shouting at people and being generally abusive, right? which is my strong suit, right? But what's happening is that the public are the reporters. Yes. And they're all calling up with the most astonishing tales. Yeah. And previously, whether we checked them thoroughly or not, boom, they went straight in the paper. Straight in the paper. Now they call up with astonishing stories. And actually, there's about 4,000 lawyers, 3,000 HRs, and at News UK they have some half-witted CEO, right, enormously concerned about her pension, I should think. Not about her career, because when Rupert goes, she goes, right? But by which time she's got so much money, she doesn't really care. Doesn't really care. So, the bottom line is they will be calling in on this, right? And since Mills has given extensive interviews over the years saying, I'm going to be fired one day.
And I was a terrible drunk.
I was a terrible drunk. Yeah. There will be a whole series of stories out there, which will be absolutely fantastic. Now, so the next issue is somebody has to say, this is a story of national interest, not least of all because it was our money forced on going to jail that paid his wages, which is fine, which is fine if he can, why he gets paid 350 grand for going like that, right, is totally beyond me. In fact, he doesn't even do that, does he?
No.
He's just standing there.
No, he doesn't even press the buttons.
You're right. So,
and he actually doesn't even say anything that he hasn't already been scripted to say. Most of the time.
So, there is a fair amount of scripting, yes, just in case anything veers offside. Like, I'm sorry, I've got to go. The Rozzers are waiting for me outside. I think so. Actually, it's the Sun readers that supply all these stories. They will know everything. Right. They will know everything. And the question for them, they call up and they say, we know some kid who whatever is said, right? In which case, then they say, but we want $4 grand, right? And you end up in this bizarre position of saying, well, I'm not sure.
Do you think there's a teenager out there who's been collecting, sort of pictures from various different BBC presenters who've been in touch with him by post? Here's another picture of you, Edwards. Oh, right, have you got one of, they used to swap the cards in the playground. I've got one of Scott Mills here. What about that? What do you reckon? I'll give you two Hugh Edwards for a Scott Mills.
But the other thing is, how do you get a job reading the news of the BBC? Have you ever sexually assaulted a child under anybody under 18? Yes, I have. Right, okay, chief newsreader.
No problem.
Thanks very much. You're going to do, what was it you did? You actually got your genitalia out at Clapham Common last Wednesday. Right, London South East.
No
for
problem.
You.
Yeah, absolutely right. It is extraordinary, isn't it? Absolutely bloody amazing. It's time for some news with, funnily enough, Edward Hughes has never done anything like that at all.
Oh, Janet. Here's the news. She would have been a great newsreader, wouldn't she, Janet?
She would have been.
Oh, Janet. And here's the news. My friend Scott Mills. Oh, it's disgraceful.
Yeah. Oh, here's the news. I've got a new boyfriend. Anyway, let's get some proper news.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes with your news. Oh joy, it's another glorious Tuesday in Blighty. Kier Starmer's boldly declaring Britain won't get dragged into Trump's latest Middle East adventure, because nothing says strong leadership like politely declining a superpower's invite while hoping the adults sort it out. Meanwhile, our genius immigration summit is launching with all the fanfare of a wet lettuce, bold rhetoric on smashing people, smuggling gangs. But the small boats deal with France is apparently on the verge of collapse. Shocking. No one saw that coming. Councils are staring down bankruptcy as hidden special needs, debts finally, hit the books after years of creative accounting. Brilliant long-term planning there. Cargo theft is booming. Thousands of pints of Guinness and wheels of cheese vanishing like magic, while the economy wobbles under potential Trump tariffs and downgraded growth forecasts. Rachel Reeves insists her plan is working in this uncertain world. Sure, love, and the weather's lovely too. And in lighter news, gorillas are relocating from Bristol Zoo. Honestly, after today's headlines, who can blame them for wanting out? Stay sunny, Britain. At least the bin strikes and stolen cheese give us something to moan about over a lukewarm cuppa. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Edward Hughes there with the news. As I say, very much a much better behaved newsreader than anybody at the BBC.
There, Mike.
Eh? Oh yeah, we're going to wrap up the show here.
30 minutes.
In 30 minutes, right? Stay right where you are, though, because we're sending you straight over to the continuing programme on UK Live Online, right? You should see it switch automatically at around about 9:30. If you see a black screen or a prompt, just wait or tap autoplay / yes to join us. See you over on UK Live Online. This is a test, right? Because as you can see, we're setting up a sort of a parallel channel so that when my show ends at 9:30, you'll be able to watch another show which will kick off at the same time on this other channel called UK Live. So it's all a bit experimental at the moment, so you have to bear with us. But so today we're going to try it for the first time. So see if you can hang around, and there might be a special prize for somebody who gets it right. We shall see. Kelvin's still here. Lucy Connelly's going to join us in this half hour as well. But just before that, it's time for my meltdown.
They
keep using that picture.
You spent a lot of money on creating that, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the most expensive graphic we've got. You know, listen, people don't come here for the graphics.
They
right?
don't.
You know,
No,
if they
you're
wanted
quite
that,
right.
we'd hire 55 people.
They come here for the free alcohol.
They come here for the free alcohol, exactly right. Well, that's certainly Marilyn Halls does, but that's another story. Right, now, the junior doctors, who like to be called now resident doctors, which is why I'm not calling them that, want to go on strike again. They want to go on strike, guess when? The day after Easter Monday, which is coming up this weekend, right? So on the Tuesday, April the 7th, they want to go on strike for a week, which will take them all the way through until April the 13th, which means that basically they will not be working from approximately tomorrow, Wednesday, right, until for about another 2 weeks, effectively. Now, that will cost hundreds of millions of pounds to the NHS. It will also cause many hundreds and possibly thousands of people who want to be operated on, who have been waiting already maybe 2 or 3 years for an operation. That'll have been cancelled. It will mean that basically the doctors have joined yet another strike, which has already kept them out of working in the NHS for something like 21 days over the course of the last year and a half since Labour got in. These people are greedy, they're scumbags, they shouldn't be working in the NHS, and quite frankly, if it was down to me as Kier Starmer, I would just sack them. But instead, Kier Starmer's done what of course Kier Starmer would do. He's made an idle threat. He's basically said to them, if you don't stop the strike, I will not offer you any more jobs in the NHS going forward. There's 4,000 jobs that he was going to give them, right? He's written a piece in the Times today in which he says this, my family's life has been shaped by the NHS. There's a surprise, I didn't know that. My mum served as a nurse. My sister works in care, and my wife continues to work in the service today. I know firsthand the dedication it demands and the pressure staff have been under. Absolute and utter rubbish, right? He talks about the NHS as if that's the only thing that his family ever did. His dad was a toolmaker. He ran a business, right? He had donkeys. He owned a field. You know, this guy can't stop lying. He is not in any way, shape or form representative of the NHS. And by the way, neither are the junior doctors. They're all making quite a nice amount of money, thank you very much indeed. The average salary now is £100,000. And if they get this latest pay rise that they're asking, it will mean that they've had a 56% pay rise, 56%. In the last 2 years, right? The Labour government said when they got in, they were going to solve the crisis in the NHS, right? By paying the doctors what they wanted. They gave them 30-odd%, 36% I think it was. Wes Streeting started strutting about going, we're going to rebuild the NHS, we're going to do away with NHS England, we're going to set up hubs so that you can go and be seen anytime you want. Well, as we've seen from the people sending us stories, there's nobody in the GP surgery. The GPs aren't doing very much work. They're doing 3-day weeks. The surgeons are going on strike. The NHS is in El Collapso mode, and the only way to fix it is to burn it down and start again. Starmer should have the courage of his convictions, and he should just say, do you know what, we're going to do away with the NHS, and we're going to get rid of half of the people that work there, because half of them don't actually do a medical job. Half of them are employed in the back office, and they're not actually doing anything other than feathering their own nest. There's a thing which is called the NHS Foundation, which basically exists as a lobbying group inside the NHS. It's run by one of Tony Blair's ex-apparatchiks who gets paid about 300,000 quid for the privilege. It's ridiculous. The whole thing is useless. Most people have given up on it. More and more people that can't afford to go private are now going private because they simply can't afford to wait. They should call it the NHS, not the National Health Service. They should call it the National Death Service. It's a complete shambles. Just get rid of it. That's the end. Oh, you're laughing as though that's not a serious piece of criticism, right? Dean Martin said once when he divorced one of his wives, he let her have the house because he couldn't find it anyway. That reminds me of a great Alan Brazil story. Do you remember the Alan Brazil story when he moved house and he was out on the Terps, as he quite often is, and he managed to make it home, but he had to try and remember to get home sort of, early enough to get his car in the morning to bring him back into work for the breakfast show on TalkSport. And he got home, he couldn't find his way in, but he managed to find where the French doors that he knew were always open. And he managed to sort of get through the French doors, only to be greeted by a woman he didn't recognise, who said, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "That's where I live." And she went, "No, you moved a month ago, Alan." And he'd gone back to his old house.
Well, hold on a second. Okay, when I ran TalkSport, okay, he came on at 6 o'clock in the morning. And
you used to fine him, didn't you?
There was an element of that. And he'd come in and he said, Brazil, and it became quite clear that wherever he'd been, it only ended about half an hour earlier.
Yeah, right.
So I called up the producer. I said, "Get him off here."
Yeah.
Get him off air, because I'm listening early. Yeah. And he's get him off air. He said, "Well, who's going to do it then?" I said, "You can do it."
Right.
He said, "Well, I've never done it. Don't worry about that. You go on there."
Yeah.
And he goes on there and he goes, and clearly he couldn't do it either. Right. So we then had to wait for somebody who could do it to come in. Anyway, they went and then checked his. He had something like a Range Rover or something like that. Yeah. The Range Rover was parked half on the pavement in a kind of diagonally across the pavement.
Yeah.
Right like that. And he just left it there. So God knows, that was a 4-hour show.
Yeah.
He would have received God knows how many tickets by the time he would have come down.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, but not to mention how many tickets he might have got for driving it. But, the story I heard was that you got to a point where you used to fine him for missing the show. Yeah. Because he would miss so many shows.
Yeah, true.
So his view was that as long as I make it into the studio, no matter what state I'm in, you can't find me.
Yeah. And here is Talks.
Right. But when I used to do the overnight show when I first started out, quite often, certainly on a Monday morning, I'd do the overnight Sunday into Monday. So I'd finish at 6. And then sort of at 10 to 6, the old producer would sort of come in, "Mike, would you be all right if you stay on for half an hour?" I'd be like, yeah, no problem at all, And then it'd be like, "I think Alan's going to be here about 7. And after a while, I just started charging him. I'm like, "Well, hang on a minute, you're now getting me to do an extra hour. I'm going to start charging you." At least it'd be quite a handy extra amount of money.
Exactly.
Because he would always be late. And he was also, Hawksby and Jacobs used to have this thing where they would play the, what's the longest intro music at 6 o'clock for Brazil, because he would literally, they'd be like, "Where is he? He's in the toilet." All right. And it was like, and it would go, I think the longest was about 4 minutes of the intro music before the morning. It's great. But those days are gone now, because, he only does a couple of days a week, and it's not.
He said, although I heard him the other day, and I thought he was still pretty good. How old is he?
Oh, no, he is.
How old is he?
I think he's about the same age as me, so he's about 64, 5, something like that.
Yeah, okay. He sounded, considering the battering that his larynx has received over the years with various huge amounts of stuff floating down here. I think he does.
Well, one of the great stories was he tells them himself, and he always tells them with this great, because he's a fantastic broadcaster actually, and a great storyteller. And he said to me once, he discovered the Mondrian Hotel, which is now Sea Container's house, over by the south side of the river, just by Blackfriars Bridge. And when TalkSport was in that part of the world. And he said, I was out drinking yesterday. He said, I saw a lovely day. I sat outside, I had some beer, lovely. And he said, the waiter comes out and he goes, is he okay, Mr. Brazil? He said, hi, I'm fine. He said, why? He says, you've just ordered your 27th Heineken. He just literally had 27 bottles of Heineken and he was fine. He thought it was completely normal. But there we are. Anyway, some people still know how to have fun. And one of those people is, of course, Lucy Connelly, who joins us now. Lucy, very good morning to you.
Morning.
Sorry to keep you waiting. We were just reminiscing about the old fun times. I saw you put a tweet out the other day, which I loved, which is a picture of Starmer with his head in his hands and a picture of you smiling. And you just thought, karma's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? I mean, what a week I was having and what a week he was having. I mean, the comparison was it was everything in a photo, wasn't it?
It was, because his weeks are getting worse and worse and worse.
Good. I hope they get even worse.
Yeah, I know. How are things with you? I mean, I was just talking to Kelvin here about there's a doctor strike looming. We've got oil prices going through the roof. It feels to me like we're living in this kind of weird world where everything's sort of out of control. Do you feel like that?
Yeah, I think the world gets madder by the day, and the whole doctor strike thing over Easter is a bit. It's a bit close to home to me because actually that was the weekend that my son Harry got really sick when he needed medical help and didn't get it. Oh. And unfortunately for us, it was that year it was Easter weekend and then it was the royal wedding. Right. So we had like 2 bank holidays on the trot. And I don't know if you've ever been into a hospital on the bank holiday, but it's like ghost town in comparison to, a normal day. Mm-hmm. And you'll never convince me that they weren't, because they're on like skeleton staff. Obviously, you've got Easter holidays, you've got, parents on holidays, you've got people wanting time off. And then you've got these doctors on strike. I mean, it's just dangerous. And if you don't think that it is, then you're not fit to be a doctor.
No. I don't think they should be allowed to strike, number one. And I'm like you. I used to work quite often at weekends, and I would walk past Guy's Hospital in London, which was in the week an incredibly busy place where you'd have ambulances queuing up, you'd have people getting out of taxis, you'd get, traffic jams in this kind of one-way system. And then I'd go there on a Saturday morning, and there was literally no traffic, no cars, no ambulances. And if you walked through the centre of the hospital, which you could do, you never saw anybody.
No, I know, and that's the thing. I mean, like I said, it's already. I think there's already I know there's already a lot less staff working over the weekends, working over bank holidays and stuff like that. And now you want to make the situation worse and go on strike. So who will actually be working over the bank holiday and Easter then? Right.
Well, nobody, effectively, and there'll be millions of pounds wasted, and there'll be loads and loads of people who have had operations cancelled, procedures cancelled, and it's almost like it's a normal thing now.
Well, I'm with you. I think we should dismantle the NHS and start all over again. I don't think it's fit for purpose. I don't think we can fix it. I don't think it matters how much money you throw at it. It's not going to fix it. I think with the NHS, it's people's attitudes. Yeah. And as this shows, I think a lot of people, not all, there are obviously some very good, very hardworking doctors, nurses, and healthcare workers and stuff working in the NHS, holding it together. But there are also a lot of really entitled, pricks, for want of a better word, that think that, I think we put doctors on a I don't anymore, but I always did. We know society teaches us that, doctors, we put doctors on a pedestal, we don't question them, they're God type characters. But actually, I think people are fastly losing respect for them, like just as they are like the police. Yeah. What happened to our country where people had so much respect for the likes of the NHS, the likes of the police force? People looked at us from other countries and were like, wow, aren't you lucky your NHS is amazing? And now they're like, I'd rather go to the vets than go to the hospital.
I
You're
know.
going to get better treatment.
Mind you, they're not much better, the vets, are they? I mean, they just charge you 300 quid every time you walk in the door.
They just charge you 10 times the amount,
And
yeah.
so, well, I don't know what's wrong with him. I'd have a go at this, try that, it's ridiculous. Am I right in thinking that this time last year, Easter coming up, you were still in prison, weren't you?
I was banged up at Drake Hall in Staffordshire. I was talking to my friend the other day, actually, because one of my friends that I still speak to that I made in prison.
Yeah.
She's big into Easter as well, and we were like comparing Easter decorations to what we had last year to what we've got this year.
Right. So what was it like last year? What did you have any decorations? Did you get any Easter eggs?
Oh no, I didn't get Easter eggs.
Really? I mean,
No.
I'm amazed actually. I haven't ever spent time. I mean, I've been visiting prisons, but I was always under the impression that prisons were not as terrible as they're made out to be. But I could be wrong about that.
Possibly not, but you certainly don't get Easter eggs.
Right. Okay. All right. So what did you do for Easter then? Anything?
No, I don't think so. I went to church I did go to church on the Sunday. But yeah, it was just like any other normal day. In fact, it was shit as well because prisons, like everything else run by the government, at the weekends and bank holiday, everything gets locked down. All the staff go on holiday, so you don't get your exercise, you don't get normal routine. So weekends and bank holidays aren't good in prison.
No. This is the thing, Kelvin. Apparently, if you work in the public sector, the weekends don't really count, do they? You don't do anything.
No, there isn't anything. They must be puzzled about people who either work at weekends, which we say is retail. I mean, they do a good job, and anybody who works at night, right?
Yeah.
So if you're in, there's nothing much can be done about this, but if you're a teacher, then you're getting now 14 weeks. Have you seen that what they've done for the term from September to December? They've been quite clever. It used to have 1 week,
right,
half term.
Yeah.
Well, what they've done is they've turned that into 2 weeks, claiming that actually they will work an extra 5 minutes a day, right? Right. So they get an extra week's holiday in that way. But if you're in teaching or any of these state employees, you don't know a world where people work over the weekend or work at night. Or that there's any pressure on you of any other kind, because you're not allowed to put pressure on to say, well, you've taken that class from there, they've all turned out to be half-wits.
Yeah.
That is not an issue for you, that's an issue for society.
Yeah.
So it's very hard for me to see how a state employees can really feel at one with the normal employee who might be doing what you do, which is get up at 5 or 4 in the morning, or somebody who works late at night, or who works at weekends.
Right.
They're completely detached.
But it's like the MPs. I mean, you must have been delighted, Lucy, to see that they've all given themselves a 5% pay rise, 3,300 quid, to deal with the cost of living increase that they bloody well caused, right? And also, they won't be working now because it's Easter recess.
Yeah, I think MPs well, actually, if you're a good MP, you work hard, but I don't think there are a lot of good MPs, are there? That's the problem. I would actually have less MPs and pay them more.
Yeah.
I think we've got too many sitting on their asses, not doing what they should be doing. Raking in 90 odd grand a year, which by anybody's standards is a good wage.
Well, it's worse than that. It's 110 now. This is the 5% pay rise takes them up to 110. And the other thing that really galls me, and I found this out the other day, because I thought I'd look it up, since Ed Davey was so keen on telling us that people in Dubai should be paying their taxes. Do you know how much his office costs us as taxpayers? He runs an office in Westminster. Have a guess.
300 grand a year.
Very good. 320,000 quid a year, right? That's not even including his own expenses for things like travel.
That's what I mean with MPs. Don't forget, they don't actually pay for anything. So they get their 100 grand a year salary, plus they claim everything back on expenses.
Yeah.
So, they're actually netting in a lot more than 100 grand.
Yeah. And how's your household budget running these days? Because, I mean, obviously, having been in prison, that must have been hard on you in terms of just financially, apart from mentally and all the rest of it. How are you recovering from that one thing? And also, how easy or difficult is it now running a house?
Well, it was really difficult at the time because obviously I ended up having to pay a lot of legal fees. We halved our salary. Me and my husband at the time, we earned a similar wage. So we've literally halved our household income.
Right.
Ray wasn't able to work as many hours because he had to, you know, look after Edie. It was really, really very difficult. Friends of ours lent him money initially for legal fees and stuff. He sold the car. But then obviously we were really, really lucky, and, you know, they did the GoFundMe and we had that lump sum of money. So that kind of put us straight, was able to buy us new cars and pay the rest of the legal fees even, and then allow me to stay home. And I do bits and pieces. I work at the gym a few evenings a week on reception now, just for something to do, really. But yeah, luckily we're in an okay position at the moment, but that's because we almost had like a clean slate. And, you know, I've said this time and time again, forever grateful to those people that donated, because it does mean that I can stay home, be a wife, be a mum, you know, be with Edie and not worry about, you know, paying the bills.
And how's she getting on? Because I don't think she was great last time we spoke, and you've got Easter weekend coming up. How's she doing?
Do you know what? Really well, a lot better. I had her out of school for quite a few months. I took her out of school last November, and I've had her at home with me since then. And she went back to school last week for the first time, and she seems to be enjoying it. And we've got the Easter holidays now, and she's a lot more. She's coming out of herself a lot more. She's a lot happier.
Okay, great. Well, it's great to see you. As you can see from the messages there, everybody's throwing lots of support your way.
That's so lovely.
And lots of love. We'll have to get you back in for Plank of the Week soon.
I want to do Plonk of the Week, not
All right,
Plank of the Week.
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, we'll definitely after Easter we'll get it sorted with Charlotte. Okay.
All right, take
Great.
care, mate.
Have a good one, Lucy. Thanks very much indeed, Lucy Connelly.
Yeah.
Hard to imagine what she's been through.
Yeah, no,
isn't it?
I thought she looked great as well. Looked full of energy, full of drive.
I mean, she's had to go through a terrible ordeal, really.
Yeah, a shockingly politically inspired, Starmer-led, push from the top.
No question.
Basically, judges who wanted preferment had to attack her and other people like her, otherwise they were not going to get promoted.
Yeah.
It was as simple as that. It was a disgraceful performance, and one that really should shame our judiciary, because they're supposed to be independent, and in this case, they proved they weren't.
Exactly right. Well, I mean, the show's come to another rapid end, but don't worry, because like I said before, we are going to try we've got a couple of phone lines running, so if you are on our Substack, and if you're not, go and join it and give us a call over the course of the next few days, because we're going to try and make that work. But we're wrapping the show up here in a couple of minutes, obviously, because it's 9:31. But don't go anywhere, because we're sending you straight over to the continuing programme on UK Live Online.
Well, we hope we are.
Right? Well, that's what we're going to hope to do. Pooch is obviously, you know, it's spinning. So we have the spinning plates. It should switch automatically in a few seconds. If you see a black screen or a prompt, just wait, tap autoplay, stroke yes to join us, and let us know if you manage to get through it. We'll see you over on UK Live Online. Meanwhile, see you back here tomorrow at 7 a.m. Kelvin, thank you very much indeed. Thanks to Pooch. Thanks to all the other guests. By this time tomorrow, we might be in an even deeper doo-doo than we are now. We shall see. See you tomorrow.